Hello, hello, welcome to Emerald Lake. It's me, Raven. I'm sorry it took me a minute. There was a bit of weirdness with my mic. It decided to do a weird thing. I don't think I plugged it in properly today, basically. But okay, here we go. Yeah, Honk redeemed a few things before your stream started, and I would like to say, creative, but also, you'll have to wait a while. You guys know I've pretty much landed on... Viola! Well, I'm gonna finish my thought, because I know I'll forget it. I've pretty much landed on... I read my stories, and then I do the redeems nowadays. So, you're gonna have to wait a while, Lahonk, and I bet you'll not be here when it happens because of that, because you keep skipping. Oh, that love is not real. That's some bullshit, Devod. That's real bullshit. Hi, Endoplasmic. You call me Raven, but hi. And Violetta. I don't know why these people kept messaging without dropping the goddamn money frogs. We got a subscription. That means money frogs. Come on, people. It's even in 7TV. Hit 'em with that. Bam. Oh my gosh. And we've got a raid? My god, everything's crazy right now. Stop, Twitch, being... Why are you in my way? Ugh. Okay, there you go. Alright. Well, welcome in, Taste of Magic. Thank you for the raid. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Welcome in, folks. We haven't even started anything yet. We just had a redeemed sub. And for us, whenever we see somebody gift or sub or whatever, we drop money frogs. So those are my emotes, but you can also access them on the 7TV or, whatever. So if you have access to that, drop them in. Give Violetta a little love for that. Thank you. You need to rig the love to be 100% only. Well, it does go up to 110, just saying, but okay. Oh my gosh, am I crying? Why am I crying? I hit the keyboard. Oops. I guess it's fitting because Violetta dropped some sub, but still. I just finished my reading stream, so I thought I'd visit another reading streamer. Well, thank you. We're going to be reading Creepypastas for... We're nearly wrapping up our Spooktober spooky themed stories, but yeah. I keep my sub to the dear Frogs Queen. Thank you, Violet. I appreciate it. Well, thank you very much for bringing your folks in. Feel free to disappear and look after yourself. I hope you rest well and you look after yourself. But hi, everybody. I'm Raven. We haven't started anything. I see that we've had some redeems. And I'll get to the ones, hydrate and stretch in a second. But basically, if you redeem, I'm not going to do it until after our first story. In between stories, I do redeems. And if there's no redeems when I do my little in-between stories break, then we move the heck on. And I get to my next reading. Now that this is a new option, people expect me to frickin' read. I'll read. I'll focus on that more than ASMR, at least for right now with my spooky stream focus. I think I gotta go back and forth in the future about what I want to do, but yeah. Okay, with that, yes, there were the posture check, hydrate, and stretch. Normally I'd be like, I don't need to do that, I only just started, but you know what? Let's go ahead and do a stretch and things. She doesn't really have fangs, but she's got solid pointy canines, yes. It's fun. Okay, I'm gonna do a quick stretch. Yeah, there we go. Okay, we hydrated, we stretched, and I am keeping an eye on my possible shrimping. Can't let that happen. Okay, hold on. Oh, well, hold on 1 second. Sorry. Okay. So, our first spook story, interesting, is Omega Forest. Should be interesting. Its estimated time is like 19 minutes, which means for us it'll take minimum half an hour, probably 45 minutes. I always meander my way through, and I think those estimated reading times are for visual reading, not verbal reading. Like not saying it out loud, taking your time. Let alone me being super distractible and such. Yes. No, not Kappa. Omega Forest. Should be interesting. Alright. Here we go. Let's go. It starts with a couple of quotes, and then we jump in. But here we go. Ye needn't think the only folks is the folks hereabouts. H.P. Lovecraft, The Dunwich Horror, or Dunwich Horror? I don't know. No, go ahead and run. I told you could. Go look after yourself, please. Go, go, go. And then another quote. Even in this world, more things exist without our knowledge than that with. And the order in creation which you see is that which you have put there. Judge Holden, Blood Meridian. Interesting couple of first things. Quote. Then it says, Part 1, New Mexico Territory, 1850. So, it's going to be the previous turn of the century times. Not quite turn, but, their eras-ish. That's fun. Alright. The survivors of the cavalry fled north across the salt plains. 10 miles after them, the Comanche retinue pursued. The raid had failed, and now the company were the prey. East was Fort Apache, west was Tijuana, and south lay the fiery furnace of Sonora Desert. Endless and white, and dead and shimmering under the sun like a boundless sea of glass. North was the only option. They made for Coconino. They made for Coconino Forest in search of escape and sanctuary. They were all coated in blood and gore and the black powder from the battle that had carried them warily across the desert for days now. The ingredients of which, sticky against their tattered uniforms, like tar. The I officially want to rage quit the story. Already. I don't care how well this is written. I don't care what else happens. I officially hate them. If you don't know, folks, I'm a deer lady. I'm a deer woman. And deer woman, that's a character from a few different nations, but from stories belonging to different groups on Turtle Island, aka North America. It is an indigenous story. So when they said Comanche, I'm like, okay, cool, we're including Comanche. They mentioned, they had become the prey now. That's just the way that went, the one fighting the other. But when they hit us with this sentence, this one that I haven't read yet, you're mean and I don't like you. Or you have a reason, this is supposed to be you looking at it historically, but I still don't like it. It's not a slur, but I don't want to say it. I don't want to say the words together. Not today. Basically, the Comanche had pursued the survivors relentlessly since Juarez, but they said it in a very mean way. And we're going to skip over that. I officially don't like the story no matter where we go. Or I don't like pieces of it. Okay. The Comanche pursued the survivors of, I guess, the cavalry since Juarez, and they aimed to finish the job before day's out. 42 of the company's men lay cut down and scalped in the desert. Scalped in the desert wastes some ways back. Now there were only 10 more to see to. So there's 10 left of the cavalry. The Comanche have well gotten rid of them. And it's 1850. We're going to let that happen. And oh my gosh. And they say the same thing later. Oh, I'm officially reading it angry. Okay. So 1850, it makes sense that this is scalping, but as an author writing this, you didn't need to do it this way. You didn't need to do this way. You didn't need to choose this to make a story. Didn't need to. You could change it. You don't need to write it like this. And the specific word that they throw in, they don't need to do that. They don't need to do that. So I hate them. And then they do it again later, so that's great. But okay, the point is that the Comanche have kicked butt, and I have a feeling it's going to be, and then finally we killed the Comanche, thank God, at the end. And it's like, how about fuck you? But okay. The raid was ambushed before any defenses could even be mounted. Fuck yeah, kick ass, Comanche. The rattling hail of arrows that had descended onto the unit from the ridge, days gone, like an unwelcome rain, had sent the cavalry into pandemonium. Plumes of gray gun smoke, then echoed in the valley and had carried off into the winds, and the battle raged, but the shots failed to find their targets. Yeah, get fucked, dudes. Okay. After an hour, those at the back saw that the battle was lost, and they were routed. The 10 men, under command of Captain Morton, turned on their heels and stole into the shimmering heat of the desert. None of them looked back to see the finale of the nightmare. Men that they knew well were now laid strewn across the sands behind them. And then this next sentence is just mean. And I don't... They all screamed as Comanche kicked ass, basically. But they have it in a way they're like, oh no, we're so scared and it's awful and they're disgusting. And I don't want to hear it. Fuck you, story. But it was not over. Those who had survived and fled across the salt plains had merely lived on, only to face a new nightmare. Of those men, something far worse awaited them. Okay. Of the men who did escape the ambush, there was Morton, the only surviving officer, corporal, whose Christian name was not known to any man, Jackson, Hughes, Bill, Lewis, Carson, and Powell. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Corporal Martin? Or like there's Morton and there's Corporal. Anyway. But okay, I think it's 7 people left over. Yeah, later it says Captain Morton, so maybe 8. Alright. They rode on for days, away from the massacre, all of them fused to their saddles as if they had merged with beasts alike, and had become an abstraction of the centaurs before them. It was on the 3rd day that Morton noticed it, something out there on the prairie behind them pulsing in the midday heat. On the horizon behind them, a cloud of dust grew. Captain Morton stopped and produced his spyglass and aimed at the cloud. He knew what it was. The Comanche tribe were following them. The whole tribe was following them? No, I don't think so. This writer doesn't know what they're writing. Anyway, that much was clear. Morton slammed the spyglass home with the base of his palm and snorted. We'll not make camp tonight. We'll leave a fire in the night and ride on, he said. The men about obliged. And there's stars, it breaks, and it picks back up. Hello, Toast. Hi, you can call me Raven. And cool, you're a flight corporal. Neat. This is going to be very different. This is 1850 and a fair deal racist. And based in New Mexico or the New Mexico Territory. It had said New Mexico Territory, which that might have just been the old name from New Mexico. Okay, but the story picks up and it says, much later, after the sun had set, oh my god, I can't with this. Every time the Comanche are just one general blob, then it's either they're referred to as Comanche or effectively a slur. In this context, it is. So like they don't even oh my god, I can't. Anyway, this is a piece of shit writer, is what this is. And I'm gonna give it 0 stars, despite the rest of it probably being written well, because it's fucked up. But okay. We're gonna keep referring to them just as the Comanche or something terrible. And I'm gonna step around it. But yeah. Okay. Much later, after the sun had set, the trick did not work. The Comanche knew that it was a gambit. They'd ridden past the decoy fire and pursued the remaining cavalry into the twilight all the same. They'd expected the routed to flee south, across the border, but they did not. The tired survivors rode their horses hard. They whipped and lashed at their horses' behinds, desperate to break away from the pursuers. The night was long and cold and dark. They rode on. And just after dawn, the survivors then saw, looming up towards them, the deep and brooding forest. A great wall of silhouettes poised there against the tenebrous blue sky of the early morning sun. They believed their salvation was nigh, yet something else was instead. Still behind them was the chief and his tribe. Again. However, suddenly, they had all lost compunction to pursue the survivors. They saw their prey and gasped each at what the cavalry in front was about to do. "Key!" one of the Comanche shouted. When the 10 survivors came to the fringe of the forest, the Comanche pursuers... Oh, hey, this time they get the term pursuers. That's nice. Suddenly halted, as if gripped by something. They snatched and tugged at their reins each, and the horses skidded in the dust 800 meters behind the survivors and the tree line. All of the tribe were suddenly commandeered by unassailable fear now. They had been focused on the mission of dispatching the survivors so much that they had not noticed just where they were pursuing them to, the dreaded forest. The motionless Comanche leader watched on as Morton and the 9 other survivors... We definitely didn't count 9. Okay. This writer is short, too. I know that we counted out the names, but okay, fine. Disappeared into the wall of dark trees. It feels like there's 8 named, and then 2 of them are definitely red shirts. That's what I'm gonna guess. they're red shirts. Okay. Disappeared into the wall of dark trees. One of the Comanche... This is all you're gonna... How about warriors? One of the warriors! Not tribe. This is a... Oh my god. Not everyone is on the horse. So no. But warriors. Use the term warriors. Pursuers. That was something. But they use a different word, and I'm mad. One of them, one of the warriors, I'll say, mumbled some kind of prayer and shut his eyes of the sight. The chief knew that all who went into that forest never came back out again. There was something else in there, something old. They turned around, panic-stricken, and rode quickly back in the direction they'd just come from. This is such an icky trope. I hate this. It's fairly typical that in media now, there's a degree of the indigenous folks know the superstitious stuff, you know, because that's all it's chalked up to be by the white folk or whoever is the not the indigenous folks that are there. And then it's super spooky, but they portray the indigenous folks as just terrified and just shuddering and just awful. Whereas we have read some of these stories. There's plenty of idiots in their own groups that go into the spooky stuff too. But it's also like they can't manage to call them anything useful except for the one time they called them pursuers. And there's wibbliness with it every time they say chief and tribe too. I'm mad. Okay, but alright. The white folk move on. Part 2. Deep in the trees, the men teetered and trotted through in silence. Teetered? I get the feeling this author really doesn't know what they're writing about in most of this. But they'd been writing in it for almost an hour. The decaying forest all around, wholly unnatural. Drizzle fell and the trees creaked in the languid breeze. No other sounds apart from the hooves moving through it all. Rows and rows of unmoving pine trees sprawling endlessly before them, bearing down on them, yet no sound. They all soon noticed the eerie quiet. "You all hear that?" Bill called out. "I don't hear nothin'," Hughes replied after a pause. "Exactly. Forest this big and not so much as a bird making noise? Strange." "Keep it down," Morton then barked. "Could be another ambush." They moved on down gulches and finally stopped at a trickling, fetid stream to fill their canteens and tend to their wounds. The ride took most of the morning. Lewis had caught an arrow in his arm during the ambush a few days ago, and his shoulder was beginning to fester. His linen shirt was stained brown with pus and blood, and the flies all about swarmed him eagerly. None offered consultation on his injury. Morton knelt down to the water and considered his reflection in the blade of his bowie knife. He then looked 10 years older than he was. As he examined his face in the metal, though, he caught sight of something. Up on the ridge to his left, something moved. Something big. Too big to be Comanche. You can just say human? Like, what the fuck? Why is that relevant? You could say the general, anybody. Why are we saying Comanche every time? You cannot find any other words for them except for the icky ones. Morton snapped his gaze left and up at the ridgeline at the sight. He thought he saw something move in his peripheries. He was sure of it, but peering up there now, he saw nothing. Only beams of sunlight slanted through the dead trees and onto him, and there was nothing else up there. He frowned, then resigned himself to the task of filling his canteen and shaving his sideburns, 'cause that's important right now. What the hell? The men about him were solemn and filled with dread, like the attendees of some morbid wake. Morton calculated that any further acknowledgement of anything untoward would only panic the men further. He chose not to mention it to his retinue. Hughes, however, had already seen something. He stood motionless in the river, the water up to his knees. He stared up absently at the same point on the ridge that the captain was looking at. His eyes were wide with terror, and he quivered in his boots. "Hughes, what are you looking at, boy?" Corporal snapped, noticing his odd behavior. Hughes did not respond. He just kept staring up at the part of the ridge where the sun straddled the earth. "Hughes, fall in line," Captain Morgan barked. Hughes came back to reality, with the tears still fresh in his eyes. He looked up at Morton on his horse. They shared a glance. "Yes, sir," Hughes said obediently, and shuffled out of the river to collect his personal effects lying on the waxed tarp at the bank. After a small rest, they mounted and rode on. The day was almost out, and their pace had slowed to a crawl as they negotiated over mires and small ravines. When night fell, they stopped and made camp on a ridge that overlooked the boundless mass of dark trees. They could not see the edge of the forest. Captain Morton briefed his men and devised a rota for sentry duty. They made a fire and orientated their sleeping bags around it. All of them huddled around the only warmth, like a litter of starved puppies waiting for their mother to return. Jackson had first watch. After taking on some cold coffee, he navigated through the dimness of the forest and stood at a point 50 meters away from the campfire. He then held his rifle loosely and stared off into the brooding night. It was a long shift. And then there's another break and it picks up, and I am not getting Borb, Gore, or Nuggies. I'm sorry. You'll have to get your own. It picks up with later. After Jackson's sentry duty was over, he was relieved by Lewis, who took up the exact footprints in the dirt that he had made himself. Jackson then came back to his roll mat and bag of particulars and saw that the roll mat next to his own was empty. Powell was not there. Jackson frowned and noted that the man's possessions and rifle were still by the fire. "Where's Powell?" Jackson asked Hughes. "Gone," Hughes muttered as he spat into the fire. He was sharpening his knife, but was not focusing on the task at hand. Instead, he merely rubbed the filthy whetstone up and down the blade with seemingly random motions. "How long he been gone?" "Reckon 'bout 2 hours now. Said he was going for a shit. Ain't come back." Jackson nervously knelt down to Hughes. "You reckon them..." "Well, now we've got this term, and that's not so bad, but based on other things, it feels like it's a slur to them." Anyway, okay, so he says, "You reckon them Indians followed us here after all?" he whispered. "I reckon they did," Hughes said, and his eyes darkened as he stared into the flames. "There will be blood tonight. I'll take no sleep, you can be sure of that." "Okay, Hughes." Jackson looked away from Hughes and pondered what he meant by such a statement. "It's pretty fucking clear to me. He's expecting an attack, and he won't go to bed because he doesn't want to be caught off guard. It's fucking straightforward." All the same, he felt something heavy fall into his chest. Dread. Hughes stared absently into the fire as if taken by something. He would not say what exactly and didn't speak for the rest of the night. Jackson smoked a cigarette and tried to forget about the whole notion. And then there's like a bunch of space, but there's no little stars that usually break up the story, so I don't know. It was almost midnight. The men about the fire snoozed and dreamed of seeing the inside of a saloon again. They fantasized about collecting their wages and buying a hot bath, a bottle of whiskey, and a seat at the poker table. The swollen silver moon hung above them all in the black starless sky like a great primordial egg, or like an augury to their own fates. The fire cracked and smoldered, and no other sounds were heard. Jackson slept and snored softly. Then that's another sound that was heard. Oh my gosh, okay. They're very inconsistent, and I don't like it. It is becoming like I'm picking at it a little bit because I don't like it, but it's fair. Then, from somewhere out in the twilight, something awoke him. One of the men on sentry screamed. I thought there was only one man on sentry. But I don't know. A guttural, agonizing screech that echoed through the night. And then nothing. The men about the fire bolted up in their sleeping bags and reached for their rifles. Cold fear assailed them all like an arctic wind. An icy shiver clawed its way down Jackson's spine. He felt the color drain from his face as he stared out, utterly terrified, into the silent night beyond the campfire. There needed to be a comma or something there. Something was out there in the dark. They all opened their ears to the wilderness but heard nothing, just silence. No one dared to call out for Lewis. Whatever was out there, it had taken him. His screams sounded like choking, then like he was gargling something. I thought it was silence. But okay, then nothing but the unnerving, widening silence. Okay, there. Just going back and forth in time. Jackson's eyes were bulging with terror. He panted and shuddered and tried to take command of his shaking body. Son of a bitch, Carson said. Something has got Lewis. What, a bear? Jackson asked. I reckon. Can't no Indian produce sounds like that from a man. I mean, you saw them and it was a massacre. I think you absolutely can. But okay. That boy's been snared by the jaws of a goddamn bear. You heard it on his throat. Shut up, Carson. It ain't no bear, Morton shouted. And your quotations are a mess right there, bud. But okay, Ryder. We all got traps all around. Then what the hell is it? A smart bear? I don't know. Morton stood above the cowering party and shook his head, remembering again what he thought he'd seen on the ridge earlier. I don't know, but that ain't no fucking bear. Some of the horses had broken from their hitchings, and the sound had bolted into the twilight. Hi, Andy. All frantic and feral, like something driven demented with rabies. Ribbies? No. Rabies. No one attempted to rein them in. No one dared to leave the fireside. All were too terrified to even think of moving. No wonder you guys didn't do shit. Everyone's too terrified. There was no sleep to be had for the rest of the night. The men all sat up in their bags in a circle. They held their rifles outstretched before them as if like a phalanx. Gun barrels probing into the darkness all around. All refused to leave their bags nor the glowing side of the campfire, as if both would offer shielding and insulate them from whatever lurked out there beyond the black trees. A juvenile notion that there was safety in the light. Everyone sat motionless on the freezing ground like a huddle of terrified rabbits, and they could only hope for the morning and safety and solidarity. No one dared imagine what it was. They prayed to see a band of Comanches, warriors, indigenous peoples, running out of the darkness towards them. But of course they didn't say any of those nice words. They said that. There would be no fear attached to that. There would be no fear attached to that? You all just ran scared from them earlier because they kicked your fucking asses, but sure, there would be no fear attached to that. Okay. But deep down, before any explanation had been offered, they all knew it was something else, something much worse. Hughes was eerily calm throughout the whole ordeal. He simply stared ahead into the heaving darkness as if awaiting something. And then it'll be part 3, and I want them all to die, and I want our warriors to laugh at them. Ugh. Okay. Dawn finally crawled around. The men shivered in their spots, the metal of their rifles so cold in their palms it was gnawing into their skin. The morning was damp and gray. After first light, the men, all haggard and haunted and pale from the night gone, jumped out of their rolls and packed away their possibles. Possibles? I haven't heard of that. The lines and wrinkles on their grayed and weathered faces were ever more prominent. No coffee was made. Was coffee terribly common then? Anyway. Everyone packed and stuffed their possessions into the saddlebags with quick, skittish movements. Looking all around as they did. Yes, thank you, Andy. They're saying bad things is what they're saying. I've been censoring this story. They are racist. Yay! So I'm fucking dying. Anyway. Everyone packed and stuffed their possessions into the saddlebags with quick, skittish movements, looking all around as they did, like birds, nervously checking behind them as they fed. Carson remained at the perimeter of the camp on sentry, whilst the rest prepared to leave. He fixed his eyes on points in the trees, in the gloom of the dawn. However, the woods all around blurred and merged into shades of mottled brown. Not green? It was hard to distinguish anything at all. There was no movement in that teetering dimness. Not even woodland animals could be heard. What you suppose that was last night? Bill asked the somber group. Indians, Hughes replied, lying to himself, like I said they would be. No one else said anything. Hughes, you were an idiot. You should have tried to sleep. I kind of knew that before, but I was like, maybe they will. Whatever it was, attack. But it didn't. It didn't attack, just took Lewis. No one else said anything. They saddled up quickly and rode on through miles of tall swaying trees. What do you mean? Nuh-uh. You said that the horses ran away. You did not saddle up. You said the horses ran away. Plot hole. Big old gaping plot hole. Okay. Saddled up and rode on through miles of tall swaying trees. I guess the horses came back, checking frequently over their shoulders as they did. Lewis was not found. Only his rifle remained, bent into a U shape and tossed into the brush, 5 meters from his sentry point the night before. They moved as one entity, horse and man, men and horses. You could just say it the once, you didn't need to. Oh my god. All locked into a common alliance of survival, no one being separate from another. Since when is this new? Oh my god. A covenant of mutual diligence from both creatures, as if the very nature of Lewis's gruesome disappearance had ignited the primal instincts of being prey long dormant in both man and beast. Horses haven't changed. They aren't... What? Also, you have an extra horse? No? Lewis's horse? If they all came back? Oh my gosh. This is the part where it's just accurately bad writing, but okay. The sun was low and white, and the rays barely filtered through the branches onto them. After another hour, they came to a small creek, then a valley. And further down that valley, they found Lewis. He had been disemboweled and dismembered, and his head sat in the cavity of his own chest. His dull fish eyes, now frozen in their socks. Do you mean sockets? Like 2 orbs of jelly, staring up absently at the clouded gray sky behind the canopy of trees. Flies buzzed around his desecrated body, and the stench was unbearable for the men. Morton gagged and spat from the side of his horse. The men gawked and stared silently at Lewis's corpse, all too stunned and horrified to speak. They rode on, and no eulogies were said. No one dared to speculate what manner of living thing existed on this earth that could do that to another. I know that we're riding with the cowards and shittiest of the people, but still. Okay. The story breaks and picks back up. It was late in the afternoon the next day. The men were tired beyond saving. No sleep was had, and they remained unfed. The horses scuttled through the underbrush warily, as if being led through it all in a trance. Well, they probably didn't get much sleep either, so they are. The tall grass tickled their underbellies as they stepped and scrabbled over the terrain. The men moved... That's some tall fucking grass. The men moved forward, and still the forest kept coming forward back at them. No matter how far they all moved, it seemed that there was no edge to the trees. Hughes, at the back of the party, swayed from side to side in his saddle. His eyes rolled around in their sockets, and he could not focus on the ride any more. He was so tired and delirious that he hadn't noticed the party were no longer in front of him, and he'd been riding off in the opposite direction for a long time. He could only recall the horrific sight of Lewis back there in the valley. He'd never told anyone what he saw up there on that ridge, but he knew it in his heart that it had done that to Lewis. The shadow that walked had made a mockery of the man's body, and Hughes wondered who of the party would be next. Well, it looks like you're gone. You're not anywhere near anybody. It was only after another 10 minutes that the party all noticed he was no longer with them. Morton had called for Hughes to come to his side for assistance with a compass, but when there was no response, they all looked over their shoulders for the first time in a while and saw that he was gone. They're dumbasses. If they're worried about bears, if they really had that theory, they should be talking consistently. They should be checking in as best they can consistently. But with bears, like, you talk, you make noise, you be loud, and that would have made sure that he was there. Also, No one looks back ever. No one checks in on anybody. When you know that somebody got yoinked and murdered. Sure, yeah, we'll just pretend that that's not a problem. Okay, I'm gonna do the stretch. I hydrated, but I'm gonna do another hydrate real quick because I just. Oh my god, the story. Thank you for that. Stretch. Okay. Okay. Hughes! Morton bellowed into the trees, but was met with no response. Morton then turned to his second in command. Corporal, he's fallen behind. Go get him. Captain Morton shouted. You didn't need to say both. Turning to your second in command was enough of that he's the one that's speaking. You don't need to say both. And then Billy said, ba-da-da-da-da. Billy said Billy. You don't need to do both. Corporal sat on top of his horse near the front of the party like he'd received a final summons. The prospect of riding back alone turned his stomach. He quivered in his saddle and merely looked back at Captain Morton with doe eyes like a child. Yes, 'cause it's a group of cowards. Did you not hear me? Morton snapped. I heard you just fine, but I'll not do it, he said as his horse tottered underneath him. Morton glared at Corporal with blistering red eyes. He has the second compass. Do it, he snarled. Can't no man compel another to tasks he ain't equipped for. A higher-ranking man can, and you are equipped for it. In the confines of a regular scenario, I reckon so, but this ain't no regular scenario, sir. I'll not do it. There's something. You will, or I will shoot you. Morton soon produced his Colt revolver and pointed it at Corporal. The party froze in anticipation. This is where one of them says, I'll go with him. But they're all cowards, so no one will. The party froze in anticipation. Corporal squirmed, but only for a moment. Then shoot me, goddammit, and I'll be shut of this, Corporal snarled. Better than the fate out yonder, them trees. You saw what they did to his body, but consider this. You'll have one less soul watching your back if'n you do shoot me dead right now. You reckon you can? You can? It says cane, but I you reckon you can? It's still I can't. You reckon you can make it out? It feels forced. Can't is correct because it's ain't. Cane is incorrect. You reckon you can make it out these woods alive on your lonesome? Morton locked eyes with Corporal and both stared at each other menacingly. Corporal had begun to slowly reach for his cattleman revolver, the hand movements slow like a snake's. What? Morton watched. All about the pair expected blood, but the fight never came to fruition. Morton considered, then slid the hammer up and holstered his revolver once more. Bill, you go back and bring him back here, Morton instead said over his shoulder to Bill. What do you mean instead? Okay. Jackson's gaze vacillated. What? My brain, it's moving. If and you do shoot. Hey, don't forget out these woods alive on your lonesome. And can't is correct. I like it. Can't. He's good. But anyway. We should be able to send Bill and Corporal, but okay. Anyways, Jackson's gaze vacillated between Corporal, Morton, and Bill. I don't care, Jackson. Why do we need to know where Jackson's looking unless Jackson's gonna do something? Anyway, Bill nodded obediently and turned and rode back into the twisted... You can ask for a buddy! The buddy system... What the fuck? Oh my god. Okay, fine. Bill nodded obediently and turned and rode back into the twisted mess of branches and bark. The unit then all watched him silently as his form dwindled against the bleakness of that raw mass of ancient wood. That ain't Indians out there, that's something else, Corporal muttered to himself. Jackson pretended he had not heard it. I don't care what Jackson's doing right now. Jackson's gonna end up being the sole survivor, isn't he? Anyway, okay. I want them all dead. Later in the day. No, not later, comma, in the day. You say later in the day. This sentence is later, comma, in the day, and neither Bell nor Hughes had returned. It's later in the day, or later. It's not later in the day and neither. No. Later in the day, and neither Bill nor Hughes returned. After an hour waiting, Morton decided that they were not coming back, and they rode on. Morton, you suck. Night fell with practiced bravado. The overcast, lowering clouds smothered and sucked all warmth and comfort from both earth and man. Well, okay. Thanks, clouds. I guess. Okay. They made camp near a large boulder, and the night was long and uneventful. They sat around the fire, and each man stared into the flames, each man seeing some... Don't say each man and each man again. Seeing something unique in the effulgence. Effulgence, okay. As if the flames themselves were extensions of man's hubris onto the world. What? Yeah, it's definitely an awkward writer. It's... I mean, I say this as someone that likes a thesaurus, but, it feels like they're using a thesaurus a lot. They're throwing in big words for a 1850s, half of it in a southern accent time. So it doesn't feel like they know what they're writing. They're just like picking a new word that's fancier. And that comes out especially that's probably what they're doing. Like, they think they're cooler and smarter and better because they say as if the flames themselves were extensions of man's hubris. What do you mean? How do flames represent the hubris? In this context, especially. What the fuck do you mean? What do you mean? Yeah, it's... You think you're so cool, but you're just a racist piece of shit. Fuck off. Man's hubris. Your hubris. Ugh. If the flames consider man's hubris. Extensions of man's hubris unto the world. Unto the world. Burning in all directions without a moment's consideration on where to go next. Thanks, Cage. I appreciate that you love me right now. I feel that. I feel it. There's always some degree of me feeling bad whenever I'm like roasting a writer, because especially like with the old stories, the fairy tales, it's like there were 500 people that told this story and it got changed and then one writer translated it and it's just wonky. But this is very much, I know what I'm doing and I don't like it. And so I feel bad, but at the same time, you're a racist asshole, so you deserve this. You deserve worse. Okay. But they're... Why are you roasting? Basically, it's... The flames themselves were extensions of man's hubris unto the world, semicolon, after a previous oh, actually, this is a very long sentence. Let me break this sentence down. They sat around the fire, and each man stared into the flames, comma, each man, shouldn't have done that twice in a row, seeing something unique in the effulgence, unnecessary word, semicolon, as if the flames themselves were extensions of man's hubris unto the world, semicolon, burning in all directions without a moment's consideration on where to go next. Chill the fuck out, it's just a fucking fire. What? And do you really know? A flame is not man's hubris. And what? No consideration on where to go next. Do you know what hubris is? It feels really stupid right now. Hi, Hades, not the villain. No, you're not the villain. This author is. Yikes. Anyway. In the morning, they rose and saddled up and dispatched without admin. Without admin? Maybe, I don't know the context of this, but that sounded incorrect. No? But okay, they're off. Anyway. The day was long and monotonous, and Jackson began to wonder if they were merely going in circles. He'd sworn he'd seen that same fallen tree before, and that same trickling stream. Time moved forward without definition, but then... ... and break in the story? No! You don't understand formatting! Oh my god. He read one of them, our fancy poem. One of them there. Fancy poems, and wanted to try his hand at some of them dare flowery words. No, he's straight. This is an author that sat down and was like, I can write in old times because it was just cool, and then it's all men and it's bleh, bleh. And then he writes only 3 different terms have been used for the people that his little team went out to kill in the first place. Oh, Hades not the villain. We're reading Omega Forest, a creepypasta story that I am not appreciative of. Might have to get Raven to check. We didn't talk about that. 99% likely racist author. Awkward writing skill. Yes, there exactly. They have referred to the people that they went to go murderizing, with 3 terms. Sometimes an added term. They had the Comanche and then an additional word that I won't say in that direct context. I'll say it in a separate moment maybe. I just really don't want to say it today. I'm just especially disgusted. And then they had one where they said the Comanche pursuers. That's the nicest word that they've used. And then they've used Indians to refer to them as well. But that's it. It's always the Comanche, bad word, or Indians. That's it. And if the 1% falls and he isn't racist, he's hella ignorant. Yeah, exactly. Like, somewhere you decided that you would write it in this context, and that would be how it would work. But you didn't have to do it in this context. Like, you could have had it be different. And it's such a basic thing to be like, oh, it's gonna be spooky, but the indigenous people know about it and they're super scared, making a bit of an insult about how they're so panicked and they're cowards about it, or they're stupid. They didn't notice it's going to the thing that they probably fucking well know. If they're terrified enough to turn around, they fucking know it. Fine. But they make it sound like, oh, they're so incapable. But like in the exact same thing where you're saying that they're terrified, you were also saying that they were terrifying, not terrified, but terrifying as our little band of idiots who he says is 10 people, but we counted at 8. So you failed to name 2 red shirts or something. And so why would you run if they're not also fucking capable? And they've described them, I can say it like this. They've described them as savage. So there you go. But then that time it's the adverb, so it feels a little bit less icky. Still icky, but a little less. So if they're so brutal and they made this massacre, what do you mean that you're not scared if they show up as opposed to the spooky thing? They straight up said like that would bring no fear. Bull fucking shit, you cowards turn tail. You're terrified. Don't hit me with that. And like run into it, like lean into it. You have them all scared and unable to do things. Say it with your full chest. These guys are cowards. No one wants to go anywhere alone, and everybody's bickering, but they're still being sent out alone, like the idiots they are as well. Like what? But no, okay, so the weird writing and the very clearly extra flowery to show their own importance. This is just a very ignorant piece of shit that thinks they're so cool and other people are lesser, so unimpressed, and not terribly surprised that there's also 0 women. And oh, when they were saying tribe, it was not the full tribe. Those were the warriors, obviously, you're doing a big fight. If it was the full tribe, there'd be like women. Sorry, Mike did the weird pop thing. Something happened to it. I was saying that there would be women and children around if it had been the full tribe, but it obviously wasn't. But this guy's doing extra flowery nonsense and we don't like it. The last thing I have read before I pick up was this. The day was long, it was monotonous. And this was time moved forward without definition. But then, and the funny thing with that here, the part that makes it bad is that you say but then ... and have the asterisks breaking the story. You don't put those two together. When you say the story break, you're skipping through time, or you're fast forwarding or summarizing or going to a different place. You put a break like that to skip, to shift, to do something else. When you have a transition already built in verbally, like but then, no, you don't what are you doing? What? No, that's not how the formatting works. But anyway, it picks up with 5 miles north, on a fallen tree, the unit soon found, like, there's so many different words that we're using for our cowards, but we could only find 3 for the indigenous folks? Really? Fuck you. The unit soon found the several heads of their lost men. When you say several... Oh, yeah, no, that makes sense, yeah. I was like, how many? But no, this adds up. The several heads of their lost men. Bill, who'd ridden ahead to investigate Hugh's disappearance. Powell, who disappeared the night previous. You know, he went out to take a shit. And Hughes himself, who'd fallen behind. All 3 bloodied heads now sat on the moss-covered tree trunk in front of Morton like some gawky exhibition. And because we're already being picky, I'll say gawky exhibition. I'll say that the way that that goes together feels a little bit funny. The exhibition is what you gawk at. Gawky implies that, like, it is doing the gawking. So, like, the people would be gawky. It's not one that I like. I can see people using it, but I don't like that particular... And it says the same thing. Something to look at, something to be gawking at. He's hitting us over the head with some of these things. And I was like, oh my gosh, stop it. Okay. He looked down from his horse at the carnival scene and recognized... The carnival scene? When you say that, that thoroughly implies something very different. I get that you mean that it's like a spectacle, but, like, come up with a different verb or noun. Don't... Carnival scene? No. Okay. Looked at that and recognized nothing of the men he once knew from his unit. Well, yes, you did. You recognized their faces, but fine. Okay. They were gone, and the husks they'd left behind held nothing anymore. They looked to him like a row of coconuts that one would throw rocks at. What? A fairground game that people would laugh at. Your brain's going to a weird image. If I saw 3 heads on a tree stump, I wouldn't be like, is this a carnival game? Should I throw rocks at the coconuts? What the fuck? You didn't fall out of a coconut tree? What? What the fuck is going on? Okay, they looked to him like that fairground game that people would laugh at. Okay, the hacked off heads, nothing more than a pantomime of gore. That's a very antithesis. And that's very antithetical to the carnival to laugh at being a pantomime of what? I guess pantomime. He means that's just in the old. But, like, what? I don't like the way you're wording this at all. Bill's lifeless eye looked up at Morton from there on the tree with an absence that could only now be acknowledged as existence. What? An absence that could only now be acknowledged as existence. You do not need to work so hard to find words. Fucking hell. Just say it straight. What you mean to say is that there was an absence of existence. That he was no longer. Stop saying the same thing 5 times, but also very poorly. I don't like it. It's annoying. Skip along, or say it better. He once was, and now he was no more. Yeah, we get the fucking point. His great head perched on the tree trunk with one eye shut and the other lazily, vacantly looking up at his captain. Yeah, I assumed it was one eye because he said Bill's lifeless eye looked up at Morton. But I would say you should swap the order of that. You could start with his great head perched on the tree trunk with one eye shut, and then eventually say his lifeless eye looked up at Morton, but, whatever. Powell had no jaw, and instead his head sat on the bark like some grotesque ornament. What does having no jaw make it as an ornament? They're all grotesque ornaments. Okay, his face festooned with dried black blood. He had no eyes. They had been scooped out and replaced with dried grass. Weird. What the hell done that? Carson mewed. He mewed? Oh god. I need to check when it was written, but I think that this is just being stupid. Oh my gosh. Oh, you share the popcorn and I want to see the little emote in bigger eyes. Let me look at it. Stop it. Oh. Nom nom. That's cute. I like that one. Okay. Indians, Morton said, and no one believed him. Yeah, it's not fucking reasonable. Maybe there's one guy that does that, but that is just him being fucking weird. That's not related to race at all. That ain't no Indians doing. Them faces got bite marks on them. You sent Bill off like that, Cap'n. I think Carson said that. I don't quite tell. I can't quite tell. Oh my gosh. Fucking hell. Quiet, Morton shouted, and then Carson did. As in, Carson shouted, or Carson quiet? Like, shut up, Morton shouted, and so Carson did. Would probably be a bit better if you mean to say, because there's just a little bit of, it could be interpreted as, and then Carson shouted, which is not what we want, but anyway. Morton sighed deeply and shut his eyes to regain some semblance of composure. They rode on in silence. They were down to 4 men now. We've lost 4 men in total, and there's 4 men left, which proves that there was only 8. I knew that he miscounted, this dumb writer. Corporal, Carson, Captain Morton, and Jackson. I feel like he probably had an edit where he was like, I only want 1 person to survive, but I said that there were 10 of them. Ugh. Okay, I better go back and edit, and then missed a couple spots. Probably. Anyway, later, they found a small river at the base of the valley and set up camp next to it. Corporal sat in the dirt, his knees pulled up to his chest. He stared vacantly into the rolling flames of the campfire, as each man about him did also. The dear woman scoffed scoffingly at the quality of the writer's writing. The words on the page caused her immaculate displeasure. Immaculate displeasure? As she scoffed with the intent of judging the author's word choice as if some sort of smug deer woman in disguise. You know, it's in her eyes, Bella. I appreciate that this was written half like the shitty writer, and I like it. Thank you. Okay. Later they found the river. They were all curled up, staring at the fire. Morton watched him. Which him? It's each man. I assume you mean Corporal? Beep. Oh my gosh. Watched him, the other side of the yellow blades, from the other side of the yellow blades of fire. Jackson smoked his last cigarette. On a serious note, I wonder if imitating another author's style would be a good training exercise. It is. It's a very good way to figure out how to write another person speaking, because your characters might have a big... Sorry, as I scrolled, fuck this fucking author. It's good to practice how you say other characters' words. If you can tap into another writer's writing, you can tap into another character's inner dialogue, or how they speak. It's good. And now, I would like to scram. Okay, so Jackson's smoking his last cigarette. He's clearly our final girl, so to speak. Oh, but he's not a girl. This is men. Shut the fuck up. Hughes saw it, didn't he? Corporal asked Jackson in a low, defeated voice. I mean, whatever is out there. I reckon, assuming this is Jackson. You got a woman? He then asked strangely. I will agree, that was strange. Fucking out of nowhere. And Jackson says no. And then Corporal, ever been with one? Why the fuck are we doing this? And then we're hit with the whammy. Bada bing, bada bam, a whore. Yes, it's the times where that would probably be something that they would say and whatever. But you could also say it a little bit differently. There's a lot of people that wouldn't say it so blatantly. They'd find flowery language to speak around it as the historical accuracies. But okay. It's just messed up. Ever been with one? A whore. Where? El Paso. And then I have a wife, Dolores. She's waiting for me. Why do you say waiting for you like that? Like, does she think... We haven't been given any context on this troop. If they're in a specific broader war or anything, how long they've been away or something like that. So I guess it would make sense, but because they didn't give us any broader context, it's a bit weird. And it's definitely super icky to me, the way that they're doing this. Like, it's just like... Okay, let's insert the men connecting to each other. And the response is just, suddenly, after trying to get to the, like, this was almost... No, he says, have you been with a woman? He says, have you got a woman? So, what I was saying, he's like, getting to the mystery. Hughes saw it, didn't he? What happened? I wonder what's out there. And then the kid said, I reckon. And it's like, oh, are we going to start theorizing on this thing that's killing us? It's killed half of us? Nope. We're going to start talking, you got a woman? No. Ever been with one? Why are you asking me if I'm a virgin? What the fuck is happening? Like, I get, like, if he wants to talk about his wife and he's like, I got a woman back home I miss. She's waiting for me. Maybe. But just like, are you a virgin? What? And then, of course, the kid's response is just, a whore. Very direct. What? I see what you said, Hades, but I'm going to technically deny the message just because, like, I don't want that term to be in the clear. But I saw what you said, and that's why I responded. No, he's not calling his own wife that, or this other guy's wife. He doesn't have a wife. It was just like, have you been with someone? And he's like, yeah, I paid someone who did it. Where did you pay someone to do that? El Paso? Well, I have a wife. What the fuck is this combo? Anyway, Jackson flicked the butt of his cigarette into the fire and struggled to find the right words. I'll not wait here any longer for judgment. How is that relevant? We're going in 3 different directions. This writer did not write this well. What do you mean? Let's get to the middle of this mystery. Actually, women. Did we acknowledge women exist? Okay, cool. I'm gonna leave. Like, we didn't even say anything about it, really. I'm not gonna wait here any longer for judgment, Corporal said after 5 minutes. I'm leaving tonight, one ways or another. What the fuck? You go it alone and you die, Jackson replied. Yeah, so maybe you should have sent people in twos, but whatever. I'll take my chances. You guys are rolling pretty good. I'll take my chances. We're as good as dead sitting here anyhow. Whatever it is that is out there, it ain't of this world. It's hunting us. There are things abroad out here, and I'll have no part of them. Okay. Doesn't that just mean, like, why are you leaving on your own? I get that this character is just trying to do this, but, like, Corporal just didn't, like, refuse to go alone looking for somebody else. This is out of character. It directly negates what he just did. It interrupts something else, so it wasn't like we've been paid off on why he changed his mind, and it's just out of nowhere. I don't get it. And then, yeah, he's just gonna leave in the middle of this? They're just taking a break. They've been trying to get away. This isn't like, I don't want to be here anymore even though you guys want to keep being here. It's, yeah, we do gotta get out. You're correct. But you're gonna go alone anyway? What the fuck? Anyway, with that, Corporal rose silently and unhitched his horse and rode off into the darkness, without so much as a word passed. Well, he did just say that, but okay. Captain Morton sucked on his pipe and watched him leave and said nothing also. Jackson watched the behind of the horse. You can say the hind. You don't have to say the behind. You could say the tail, the hindquarters. That is what you call it. The behind sounds like you're a little Midwest granny not wanting to say butt. Like, what? Okay, watch the behind of the horse, and Corporal alike steal away into the wall of inky black. Corporal was never seen again, except in a little while we're probably going to see Corporal's face, which is a lie then that he was never seen again. Maybe if you said never seen alive again, but anyway, fucking fine. With the departure, the 3 survivors then fell in on themselves. What do you mean by fell in on themselves? They started fighting? They snuggled up? What do you mean by fell in on themselves? The crushing gloom in their souls heavy against their bodies like chains of bondage. What? What? Why are you saying gloom like bondage? What the hell? The fire smoldered, and no man rose to furnish it with more wood. All were too taken with the plight to think of anything else. The plight? I would have said their plight, if anything, but the writing is annoying how he uses seemingly random vocabulary words like he doesn't even know what they mean. Yes, he definitely is using a thesaurus and not understanding it. And he's also making, like, he's trying to make these metaphors and stuff, and they don't fit. Like, they feel wrong just about every time. But okay, the story breaks and it picks up. The remaining 3 horses had escaped at some point in the small hours of the night. They're gonna come back again, you just know it, because they fucking do that. But also, there should be 4 horses. Again. They had the one guy's horse when he disappeared. And then they had a second guy's horse, I realized. They should have had 2 extra horses. Fuck. I'm really quick gonna break character. No, the Omega Forest just sounds like a piece of shit. Ooh. Ha 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 ha. Okay, that's a problem. Hold on, I have to deal with that soon. Okay. Alright, anyway. The remaining 3 horses had escaped at some point in the small hours of the night. They chewed through their bindings and took solace in escape, seemingly seeing more promising refuge in the smothering blackout there. Okay. Sorry, I'm going to have to break. Ugh. The story's a lot. We'll pick back up at the horses running away, but I have to address this. I'm very sorry. This is a problem. I will be right back. Be right back. Ba-doop. Sorry, folks. I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. Alright. Mild kerfuffle that I don't know if when it will get solved, so sorry. I am concerned, and I don't know when things will... problems. Okay, but for now, let's focus and keep reading our piece of shit story. Yay. Alright. The horses are gone. The next day, the men rose, all gray and sullen and beaten. What do you mean, beaten? They saw that the horses were gone and could not afford any more than a grunt and a sigh at their passage. They packed their things and walked north. The day was arduous, and it carried with it the sense of guilt, or some abstraction of survival's guilt therein. should just be guilt for the various murders that you were trying to do. From my understanding, the mic. From my understanding, these guys didn't get anything done, but they tried. So I don't know. But also, you didn't help the people as you were like you could have gone in pairs. You could have gone in teams, but you didn't. So whatever. So survival's good. Why, when all others had fallen, did these three stand? Luck. The remaining three then made camp at nightfall with what provisions they had carried with them. They did not eat and instead installed themselves in their bags, all facing outward. They sat and waited and dreamed of home. The night was heavy and vibrating and full of strange rustlings. Beyond the meager flow of the campfire, something was moving around quietly out there. Something big and heavy. Sorry. Something big and heavy, but stealthy and taciturn. It was coming closer. Twigs snapped and the earth squirmed under something. All of them heard it, but they refused to acknowledge it just the same. They prayed it was wolves out there on the perimeter, but it was not. The fire died later, and only the oil lamp illuminated the cold, dark floor of the forest about. We have an oil lamp? All we've seen is fire, but okay. Yeah, I don't know how long it will be based on this stuff, but You have the oil light illuminated the cold, dark floor of the forest about, a small island of light against a sea of black. They sat, waiting on guard, ready for any advance. I thought... Are they just sitting in the woods? They're not even trying to go anywhere at this point? What the fuck? Oh yeah, the horses are gone, but like, you can walk, dude. Nah. It was much further into the night when Jackson's eyelids finally began to sag. He hadn't slept in almost 3 days. They aren't sleeping at all? And he could not fight it any longer. At some point, he didn't know when, his head slumped forward and he leaned down into his chest. The rifle fell against his head, but went unacknowledged. Then he closed his eyes and everything went quiet. Break in the story and it picks up. He awoke later only to hear... You don't really need it when you say he awoke later. Again, like, you use a break in a story when you don't have a way to say it in your words. So I don't know. Okay. He awoke later only to hear the shrill screaming of Carson assaulting his ears. There was this savage, jarring scream that filtered through the trees and had awoken him from his sleep. Carson. At first, when I saw that word, I was like, are you saying that the indigenous folks are back? The Comanche have visited? No, they did not. They mean Carson. So, good for you for using that word for something else. But I guess it's the... oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the word. It's the... adjective, not the noun that they're using in this case. Okay. Help! Carson shouted. It's got me, please, help! He shouted as he was dragged off into blackness. Jackson bolted up from his slumber and looked around. The spit in his mouth clumpy and salty. What? Okay. His eyes were swollen shut, still with the task of sleep. Jackson looked to his left. On the ground where Carson was sitting not moments earlier were now drag marks leading off into the grass. There were claw marks also, and clumps of underbrush had been ripped from their roots by something. Ah! Carson shrieked somewhere back in the forest. God damn, Jackson gasped in horror. He instinctively reached for his rifle and stood up in the gloom. What the hell is this? Carson's dwindling screams then slithered off into nothingness, and his gut-wrenching cries of despair soon vanished. And both Jackson and Morton stood up from their bags and positioned themselves back to back next to the oil lamp, both rifles facing out. Neither one of them saw what took Carson. Holy Jesus, what is it? Jackson asked. I don't know, Morton replied. I really don't know. His voice was cracking. Hi, Gary. The forest was silent again, and the pair stood by the hollow glow of the lamplight with all the loneliness and dread in the world bearing down on them. Really? All the loneliness and dread in the world? But okay, fine. I'm just jabbing at them. That's actually fine. I don't like this. Both men awaiting their turn. Minutes went by like hours, and Jackson probed into the pit of his stomach in search of a warmth he might have called hope. The only reassurance he felt was Morton's bulky back pressed against his own, the last two tethered together in an uneasy partnership of survival. It's gonna come back, Jackson said. I know. It's gonna take us next. Hello, Raiders! I am rushing through the end of this story. It's still a ways to go, but I hate it. Basically, the author was racist. So, forgive me, but I'm being awful to it and I'm rushing. It's gonna take us next. They stood together like two stalagmites. Is that the correct one? Up from the ground? Two stalagmites soldered down to the primal earth below their boots. They waited, and there was nothing. Minutes went by. How long you calculate till dawn? How long you calculate till dawn? I thought they were saying things like reckon, and you're gonna say calculate? Okay, fine. Jackson whispered to Morton after another few minutes, but there was no reply. Sir? Jackson asked. He turned around and saw that Morton was gone. You just said that you felt each other's backs against each other. What do you mean that he was just gone? You would have fucking felt that. The plot holes. The plot holes. Okay. He turned around and saw that Morton was gone. Sir? He asked once more. This is the horses all over again. Dropping his gaze to the floor, he saw what remained on the ground by Jackson's feet was a bloodied rifle and Morton's cavalry hat all ripped up. My God, he said as he stared down at all that was left of his captain. Without even thinking, Jackson turned and ran, 'cause it's a party of cowards. He snatched up the oil lamp and panted and screamed as he lurched forward through the woods, away from the scene, away from it all. He ran and ran. Then, without prelude, he smacked his head on a low-hanging branch and fell into the mud. His body dropped into the mire, and he laid there for a pause. His hearing rang like something was firing an Evans repeater right next to his head. I'm guessing an Evans repeater is a type of, like, old gun, maybe, that they're referring to. It's just the weirdest way to suggest the tinnitus sound. Like, I feel like that's the worst description. It's a ringing. It's not a... Oh my God. Anyway, tingling, nauseating noise that sounded like iron pots being kicked down the stairs. That's not what... When your head and your hearing is ringing, that's not what that sounds like. It's tinnitus. It's a low... It's very consistent and annoying. Welcome to an ASMR stream. That's a terrible thing. We are reading and writing, not ASMR. There you go. It's my cheat. Okay. When he came around again, he sat up, bleary in the dirt, and heard it. Something was coming toward him. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Talbot. I'm so sorry. I was just very pissed off with this story. I didn't think. I'm sorry. Okay, something was coming toward him, lumbering heavy footsteps, squelching through the marsh. Jackson cautiously stood up. The noise had brought him back to reality and took hold of himself once more. He was trembling. He could barely keep a grip on his rifle. He retreated 2 steps and found his back against a tree. The rough bark prodding through his thin blazer. And isn't the tree gonna disappear suddenly? Okay, his eyes darted in all directions, squinting into the shroud, trying to spy the origin of the low steps stalking ever closer to him. He looked right and saw nothing. He looked left and saw only unending blackness. Then he peered forward once more and saw it. Something's coming toward me. When you look left and then right, and the tree is behind you, you're gonna see something in the middle when you go from one side to the other. What do you mean he had to look back to the middle? Oh my God. That's not how sight works. Okay. He gasped, and the rifle fell from his suddenly weakened grip. because he's a coward like the rest. There in front of him was a giant shadow, this immense black gargoyle that seemed not to have form nor aspect. What do you mean it didn't have form if he can fucking see it? Ooh, you are going off this, and I hate you for it. Okay, just this mass of reeking wet fur. It had protrusions and antlers sprouting from every angle on its behemoth-like body that moved around like driftwood caught in a tide. They were going off of shitty indigenous we know what that is stories, so of course they just went and ripped up an indigenous story. The antlers can be a spooky thing if you know the Wendigo and the deer woman, but I don't doubt they know the deer woman. So now they just say that there's antlers coming out of everywhere on its body that apparently doesn't have form, but it has antlers. What the fuck? Okay, anyways, moved around like driftwood caught in a tide. It came closer and leaned down to Jackson. Oh, thank God this author has no other stories. Oh, God. We're at the end and I can see that there's... it says more stories from this author. And there isn't any. No, wait, there is. Oh! Oh, it hurts. Oh, it hurts. Okay. It came closer and leaned down to Jackson. He whimpered, his lips quivered, and a tear rolled down his blistered face. Please, have mercy, he tried to say, but his voice shook too much for the words to be distinguished. The breath of the beast was hot and wet and rancid on his face. It smelt like rotting flesh, copper, and stagnant lake water. Its giant, damp snout, inches from his own. It snorted, and steaming strings of saliva hit his face. He held the oil lamp up in the darkness and saw only a massive, slimy, and hairy mouth in front of him, all the dripping red gore clinging to its flat, square teeth. So... He screamed, but not for long. It was cut short by the towering, goatish beast before him. Okay. Why? What? And then it breaks, and then it picks back up. I hate this. Oh my God, fuck this guy. Back at the Comanche camp, Braid, the chief snapped up from a horrific nightmare. Cold sweat rolled down his face and he puffed and panted. Somewhere deep in his dreams, he'd seen that all of the survivors who had gone into that forest were now dead. Thank fuck. But it was what would happen to them after death that made the chief feel utterly terrified. Their souls would never find rest, and he knew that. So, we've just confirmed. He jolted awake. He's terrified. There's a cold sweat. And yet the next sentence. His wife reached up to console him, but it was not warranted. It's fucking fully warranted. You probably woken her up. You've definitely scared her because you're terrified and you're in a cold sweat and you snapped up. Dude, it's absolutely fucking warranted. And yet he pushed her away and stared forward at the opening in the teepee. Past it and out into the ever-expanding blackness of night. Out there, he only knew the thing still lingered. He did not see the face that killed them all, nor hear its movements in his nightmare, but only knew its presence as an ancient and evil spirit. It had no name, and he knew those men would not be the last to perish in that forest because of it. The end. I hate this story. And somehow, 3 votes gave it 10 out of 10. You get 1. Take that fucking story down several notches, please. I am not reading anything else by you. I am tempted to go over there and give them bad ratings to make sure it gets worse. Basically. Ugh. Ick. Ick, ick, ick. With that, I'm gonna do triggers. Lahunk, are you here? Hello, Rick. I mean, girl implies I'm very young. This is a 13 plus stream, or 13 plus platform, and I'm an 18 plus required for my streams, you can assume I am woman. Page flipping and humming. Is there no Lahonk here? I did ask for Lahonk, yes. I wanted guidance on what the heck this... The goose was here just a short while ago. The goose disappears and never is here for the freaking... Oh, there you are. Never here for the freaking triggers, but here you are. Good, good, good. I have no idea what your fucking trigger word is. I'm so lost, buddy. I don't know what this is. What is it? I don't get it. Is this a reference I don't get? I'm lost. Help. I want to do it justice because you've redeemed it really early. But I don't know. I'm very lost. You forgot what you put? I had to. It says, I guess I'm just gonna say it like this. It says, wah wah, what I'm a doing there or here. I don't understand it. It is like word salad to me. I don't understand. Hi, Fett. You lurk around. Go ahead and lurk. You're good. Yeah, wah wah, what I'm a doing there or here. I don't get it. But okay, if that's it, that's it. Yeah, and I'm sorry this awful story took so long to finish. But it is finished. And, yes, you are on your phone tonight. You did give warning. I said give this fucking story 1 star, and Creepypasta isn't loading, so it's trying to let it stay at 10 out of 10. Fuck that. This guy deserves negative stars. You don't go saying that racist shit on my watch. And it looks like at least one of the other stories is going to be the same sort of old-timey stuff, so that he's going to get away with more bullshit like that. It's icky as all hell. That bad, eh? Vet, you have no idea. In the first few, paragraphs, we were hit with an indigenous... It's a slur at that point. It is. And then they just kept saying it. They only referred to these indigenous people as the Comanche, which, okay, cool, that's their nation. Cool, I'm glad that you're specific and you didn't just say Indian. They did end up saying Indians. It was the Comanche, the Indians, or like the last word which they used at one point as just like an adjective on the Comanche, but that in other times it was the noun. And just repeatedly. And then there was a weird fucking moment where they were just like, they didn't have any women until these 2 moments. And in both cases, it was just fucked up. It was first, the characters were like freaked out by this monster that's killing us. And you think that they're about to have their talk and like start theorizing. Like, okay, we gotta get our shit together. Half of us are dead. And one of them's like, do you think he saw it? Yeah, I think so. And we're about to go. And instead, you got a woman? And the guy responds, nope. And then he says, you ever been with a woman? Why are you asking him if he's a virgin? Why are you doing this? Maybe if there was a point, like, sorry, you gotta die a virgin, kid, or something like that. Like, maybe if there was any other, extra point to what they're saying, but he just is like, you ever been with a woman? And the guy responds, a whore? Where? El Paso. And then he's just like immediately moves even further. I've got a woman. Like, we don't acknowledge that we just asked him about that. Fine. I got a woman. She's waiting. Her wife. She's waiting for me back home. And then that doesn't even get fully fucking recognized. It's just another left turn to hell. So left and down. And the other guy is just like, welp, I'm sick of this. And just leaves. He just goes and kills himself, basically. It's like, what, why, huh? You had just said that you weren't gonna leave, and now you're gonna leave? Why? Because the author wanted more people to die. That's why. Fucking plot holes everywhere. And then the other time that they mention women, it's the Comanche chief having a nightmare at the end of the story, seeing all this. Ooh, mystical vision. Fine. And he's very clearly, it says he's terrified. It says he's woken up with a start in a cold sweat. And his wife goes to console him, and it says, but that wasn't warranted, so he pushed her away. What do you mean not fucking warranted? You're freaking out. Don't tell me you don't have emotions. You are very clearly emoting right now. Oh, this guy. As well as just general awkward writing. Icky, clear, thinking you're too cool than you are. It's weird. If I have not very clearly done enough rage puffing already, you guys are nuts. And it's still not fucking accepting that I'm giving it 1 star. It's still doing this. Why won't you accept that I hate this story? I'm tempted to compare the Comanche thing to Lovecraft calling certain the tribals. Accurate, but it's a messed up to talk about them. Yeah, certain groups, the tribals. Every time you do that, it's like, okay, a vague monolith, like, which tribe? Tell me fucking which tribe. At least the story was like, the Comanche. We know what one, but it's clear this guy was like, okay, I'll do this and that. Done. Not fucking done, you twat waffle. And then he was also like, the tribe, and like, that's not how that works. The whole tribe, just like this is the soldiers, this isn't everybody. The tribe isn't like unit of soldiers. Tribe is like a town. Like, that's not how that works. Buddy. And then there's people, the chief thing, that's another thing. So, I don't know the full etymology, but apparently chief is an English word. It was created when people showed up here, not what they called themselves. That's not, it was an English or, colonialist thing that they brought over. So I don't really know that one, but yeah. Oh, you like it? Yeah. I like it, yeah. Okay. It's a lot. Oh my gosh. I'm overwhelmed with a couple of things. I'm supposed to do redeems. I will say, you Rage Puff requesters, my guys. That's what this whole story has been. Have I not been raging this whole time? I even just did a summary for Fett that was pure Rage Puff. Can I click it off for you, Andy? It was Andy, right? No, it was Toast and LaHonk. Can I click one of those off for you guys? I feel like I did it. Man, gotta keep my stories to myself. No, you're good. As long as you're not a racist piece of shit, you're not gonna get anywhere near that kind of aggression. I mean, you have, but it's not the same. Oh, okay. I feel like right now, if I try to do it, it won't be unintelligible words. Words will be very clear. And you guys will know exactly what I'm saying. And it'll just be the same as this. Oh my gosh. Hold on. Trying to entertain you while I have to do this message because chaos. Okay, sure. All right. Stop. Okay. It's a mess. It's all a mess, and I don't like. It's a big don't like. Okay. I was staying while listening to it, and your rage. I'm glad it was entertaining. We have had people say like, "Can maybe you should read my story?" And like, seriously, the reason these things set me off and I end up being really critical of them isn't like you're a really bad writer. It's like, why are you being so uppity so clearly in your writing? Why are you being so racist or sexist in your writing? This isn't okay. And then I'll pick apart everything else with it, typically. If it's really confusing, then I'll say something like, I'm lost. What? And it'll take me a minute. And then maybe I'll say it. I still haven't been able to have this creepypasta recognize that I'm giving it 1 star. And maybe it's just my Wi-Fi being very slow, or maybe this is why Guy has 10 out of 10. Because something is preventing people from giving it a bad rating. Conspiracy theorist Raven. Oh, this is bullshit. Let me rate him poorly. Think of those aspects are fine if it's part of character. I hate when it's just blatant for no reason. Yeah, if there's a reason, I'm very determined. I will not leave this. I'm not hitting random story button. You racist in a creepypasta? You're getting a 1 star. You should be getting negative stars. I'm prepared. Maybe I should freaking try and report the story to creepypasta. You know, in your judgment, tell me if it's trash. I do sometimes end up with the worst kind of stories. It's entertaining. If it was all perfectly good, it would be annoying. Well, I could comment and say I've been trying to give you a 1 star, but it's not working. You're a racist piece of shit. I feel like that's a little hard. It's a little much. And it's not loading at all. Okay. Well, I'm gonna start in on scissor snips. I've been delaying, trying to watch the creepypasta rating go through. But let's do that now. Scissor snips. Up first. Here we go. Talbot? I think I will. Oh, I just realized. There you go. There was our scissor snips. All snipped out. We've got 2 different singing frogs, so we're just gonna do 1 right now. But we will bring out the singing little frog. Herbert. And that was our Herbert, our little wooden frog. His little triangle nose. Boop boop. Okay. I'll do sniffs, rage puffing, page slipping, and humming before I do dice because I don't want to move my mic. But yeah. Aww. That looks like Lahonk really just told you to eat and you said, okay, Lahonk, you're in charge. Like, what the hell? Okay, go eat, Violetta. Take care. We'll see you soon, hopefully. I am planning to not stream tomorrow and just stream a little bit on Thursday, the end of the Spooktober day. But if that changes, I will stream tomorrow. We'll find out. We'll find out. But okay, here is Sniffs time. That's what's up now. And there was our sniffs. I am fully sniffed out. That was a lot of sniffing. I'm gonna give myself a break while I page flip, and then I'll bring back all the energy for rage. Okay, go. As usual, we do the little book that has like cardstock paper first, and then we'll do the big book after. Now the bigger book. There you go. All right. Ha ha! Rage. Wait, rage flipping? What would that be? Oh no. Rage puffing time. I am prepared. I can do this. Hold on. One sip of caffeine. Oh yes, okay, caffeinated. All right. puff. I'm drained. Talbot, did you know what we were doing? Oh no. Oh gosh, hold on. Is that not it? No, is it this one? Is it rage? Rage puff? Which freaking command is it? There it is, rage puff. There you go. Okay, rage puffing. There you go, the little explanation. I forget sometimes when people don't know it, so oops. Alright, so there we've done one of those. I'll do humming. That sniffs will have to be for later. Because I just did sniffs. And then I'm going to move the mic and finally do dice, which was one of the very first that Honk redeemed. So, yeah. Hey! It's just the rules. Come on. But okay, I'm going to do humming and then dice. Alright. Toast, go ahead, go eat, take care. I did get one of the rage puffs, so yeah, I did yours. So it should be good. Oh no, no, there's an ad that's about to start and I didn't even realize it. Okay, well there's gonna be an ad. Let's see if I can click and make it happen this way. Oh, I don't know. Oh, I didn't even realize, I didn't notice it. Okay, there, the ad's in progress. Oh no, oh no. Oh no. Oh goodness. Okay, we are back from ad. I'm sorry that was kind of sudden. I didn't realize that it was there. Oh goodness, that's not what we're looking. Okay. I'm gonna keep doing with a little bit more humming. Sorry if I'm very scattered tonight, but yeah. And so I'll do one more little song, and then we will move on to dice, and then hopefully into another story if Creepypasta still hasn't accepted my 1-star vote, which is rude. It sucks. Let me say that it sucks. Why are you censoring me and not censoring their racism? Okay. One more time. Alright. Now I'm gonna move the mic, gonna do dice, and then we're gonna go into the next story. Hold on as I move mic back. Alright, I am back. Oh boy. Okay, well, it's refusing to let me rate this poorly. So what I've decided I'm going to do is leave this tab open, open a new tab, and hit random story there. Because I'm not letting this story get away with this bullshit. I am honestly tempted to add that that was some racist bullshit that they did. But I don't want to be connected back to it, and they might require that I have like an account or something. I don't know. Anyway. Okay. So we've got the new story, and this one's about as long. It's called The Tower by B.T. Joy. And Andy, I'm assuming you mean like stories to read that you've dropped in on the Discord? That sounds great. Just always remember trigger warnings if there should be some. Maybe tell me like what kind of story it is. You know, it's obvious if it's an SCP, but maybe if it's something else you could tell me beforehand. I don't know. But okay. Sounds good. Thank you. Alright. The Tower. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. Thank you very much. Alright. They'd stopped on Wynn Street outside St. James. Ethan hadn't broken his silence for a moment as he parked up by the church, and Lauren knew better than to challenge his decision. At the best of times, when Ethan needed silence, he needed silence, and this wasn't the best of times. Okay. What's going on? Alright. From here, they could both see the gray lines of Interstate 49 stretching clear back to Shreveport, where it joined the roads that led onto Texas, Arkansas, and Mississippi, or to anywhere, for that matter. Well, I mean, it wouldn't be a road that led to Edinburgh. It's pretty clear, but anyway. Okay, but the place they were going to. Or to anywhere, for that matter, but the place they were going to. Well, then where the hell are they going? Edinburgh? Ethan touched his lips with his tongue. Laura watched him quietly, quite aware of his tells by now, but conscious not to be the first to speak. We've come too early, Ethan said at last, having wet his lips a few more times out of habit. I didn't know where that sentence was going if I read it the way I did. Okay. Laura looked at the dashboard clock. It was 8 a.m, and they'd touched down in Alexandria International around 5:30. They'd stopped in the airport to eat. They'd checked out the condition of the rental car so many times that the agent flat out told Ethan he'd better things to do. They'd driven as slow as possible into the center of the city, and all this without so much as exchanging 2 words between them. We've got all the time you need, she told him. Do you want to talk about it? I get the feeling the answer is no. The morning sunlight was cool and yellow on the road in front of them. Up ahead, Ethan watched a Cooper's hawk sail down onto a telephone pole, wait a moment, cock its head, fly off again. He shivered visibly when Laura touched his arm. Ethan, she did her best to catch eye contact as he looked at her. Do you want to talk? Ethan's eyes grew less wide. He tried unsuccessfully to look less on edge. Then he shook his head and adjusted his body so Laura was no longer touching him. I'll be fine, he said flatly. We've come too early is all. It wasn't like this. Laura breathed out. Ethan, you remember what Dr. Brader said. We can't fixate on details. It isn't going to be the way it was. Things have changed. You've changed. Ooh, okay, this sounds like we're going back to the scene of a trauma is what I'm leaning towards. We've got a doctor saying that. He's on edge. She's guiding him. But things are different. Things were different then. It feels like we're reliving. We're going back to a place of a trauma, which is a known way to try and like help alleviate that, and certainly to collect other memories you didn't realize you had. Oh yeah, okay. Oh, this is going to be emotional is basically what I'm gathering, and it's probably going to be mildly triggering. So brace yourselves for that. Ethan just kept staring out the window. He wouldn't close his eyes, not while Laura was there, not while she could see him, but he knew if he did, he'd have smelled the wild boneset flowers again, and the lemon mint heating under rows of tomato plants. Then brick dust and cobwebs strung out in the cool shade, stringing through his hair and slithering across the skin of his face. He was 32 that year, and yet still, whenever he closed his eyes, he was 11 years old again. Nothing ever changed. Story breaks and it comes back. Laura tried not to see the 8-block journey to the 4th Street Motel as a retreat. She'd suggested to Ethan that if, as he'd claimed, jet lag was his only problem, then they could take the short drive to Marksville and find somewhere there to check in, have a bite to eat, and a rest. Then they could set out again in the afternoon. That was nearer the time, she'd said, wasn't it? She'd known she'd lost when Ethan started to bite his upper lip. For him, the Red River, running between Alexandria and Marksville, was not only a geographical but a psychological barrier. Really, she thought, while they rode backwards to the motel, she should have been giving him more leeway. This was the first time since he was a teenager that he'd gathered together enough guts even to return to the state of Louisiana. When they'd met, Laura had pegged him as a born and bred New Englander. I'm glad that sentence continued moving along. I'm a 10-year-old. I'm not. So she gathered that he was a born and bred New Englander, just like herself. Incorrect, I guess. She'd been more than surprised to hear, after his second big breakdown, that in reality, Ethan had been born and raised right here in Alexandria and spoke with a southern drawl until the age of 16. Thank you, Andy. It's a form of self-deception, Dr. Brader had told Ethan once, and Ethan had told Laura, if he doesn't speak the way he did as a child, then maybe he wasn't that child. Then maybe those awful things didn't happen. Well, so that's why he's changed his accent. Oh. So yeah, lots of just general PTSD kind of as a trigger. Here we go. The story breaks and they pick up. They pulled into the parking lot on the corner of 4th and Fisk Street. Ethan let the engine die. I'm sorry about this, he said. I always told myself I wouldn't drag you into this mess. Don't talk like that, Ethan, she answered him. You're doing fine. He looked at her skeptically. Come on, Laura, I can't even cross the river. She grabbed his hand. You will, though. Will I? He smiled weakly. He looked down at her hand, holding his hand so sincerely. When I look at you, he kept looking at their hands, unwilling or unable to make eye contact, I see how successful you are and how clever and how pretty. Ethan, for goodness sake, let me finish. He looked at her at last, shaking his head. I just can't see why you'd want to spend so long dealing with my problems. She tightened her grip twice over on his hand and stared directly into his eyes. They're our problems, Ethan, she insisted, and once we get over that river, once we get back to Marksville and see that place, you're going to realize it can't hurt you anymore. She saw him begin to bite his lip and pulled him into her to stop him. She held his neck. She kissed his ear. You were a little boy, Ethan, she said. You were a little boy when it happened. The story breaks and it picks up. The tower had stood in a small farm back then, a mile or two outside of Marksville, between the bank of the Red River and a small flooded strip of grassy bog where families of wood ducks paddled and sailed, letting out their tall, sharp yipes, yips is what I was saying, yipes of sound into the heavy afternoons. It was stone-built, and its architecture showed Spanish and Sephardic influences that predated even the Louisiana Purchase. The local assumption, therefore, passed down through generations with no actual archaeological evidence, was that it had been a lighthouse erected by La Salle and his men after they'd claimed the riverland for Louis the 14th. Such structures had existed, it was true, but then, being made of wood, they'd all rotted away centuries ago and fallen into the drink. Why had only that one been built from clean-cut stone? Maybe because that was what was available. Why did it have characters from some script foreign to Latin engraved in arches around its doors and windows? An artist was in charge for some reason, maybe. All of this is bullshit. I'm sure there's going to be a supernatural answer, but I'm just like, And why had every entranceway been walled up by blocks of material just as old as the edifice itself. A day after they built it, a plague. I don't know. Again. For Ethan and his friends from Alexandria, those questions presented an almost magnetic pull. All summer the game was the same. Bike out of Alex along the Red River Road to the bridge and down into the farm where the farmer never farmed. Where the rows of tomatoes and frowsy zucchinis coexisted with wild berries and tall strands of boneset crowned in fragrant white flowers. Every day they'd laid their bikes in all that green smell and maunder. They'd throw off shirts and run their jeans wet in the shallow of the river, chase the wood ducks, and then lie by the bank in the heavy heat and let the denim dry to their skins. Sometimes Ethan would walk around and around the tower, trying to imagine where the builder had laid the first stone. The graven symbols filled him with boyish wonder, and it wasn't too long before he'd stay an extra quarter hour after his friends had decided to bike it back home. "Don't worry about me, guys," he'd say. "I'm right behind you." But the time spent alone grew longer and longer, whole hours staring up at the darkening sky with its blues and browns and the height of the tower above his head. After a while he began bringing his Swiss Army knife, the one his dad had brought him for his birthday last year. And only ever when the other guys left he'd start to worry the longest of the blades between the rotten stones interstices of the stones. Oh, I'm just a little bit lost on that sentence. I don't think I've heard of worry as that kind of use. But I trust this author, so I'm like, oh, okay, I'm just learning. The stones that had been placed in the blocked-up entranceways, almost as though someone were trying to keep him out. And now we have the story break and pick back up again. Ethan woke in a strange bed and clawed off the blankets. He rolled onto his stomach, choked, hawked, and spat on the motel room floor. Blood was running through the gaps between his teeth and slavering over his chin. "Ethan!" The lights burst on and Ethan rolled pathetically onto his back like an upturned insect. Laura grabbed his arm and tried to pull him upright on the bed. "Ethan, it's okay. You've just bitten yourself again." He spat up more blood and tried to wipe it away on the back of his hand. "It's okay," Laura insisted. She pulled him off the bed and led him off to the bathroom. He leaned his feeble weight on her shoulders the whole time. Laura knew the drill. Hell, Ethan bled nearly every time he had the nightmare. Once he'd driven his teeth so far into the flesh of his upper lip, they'd had to take a trip to the emergency room that night, where he'd been given 2 butterfly stitches. In some lights you could still see the tiny white scar that laced across his philtrum. When they reached the wash basin, Ethan leaned down on it, and Laura took the chance to twist on the water and grab a washcloth. She held the rag under the flow, wrung it out, and then pressed it against her boyfriend's face, staunching the red flow. "It's okay," she whispered. "For goodness sake, Laura!" Ethan pounded his fists on the stand. "Stop saying that." Laura looked concernedly into his face. His eyes were staring furiously into the mirror, and if she were truthful, the sound of anger in his voice had frightened her. Ethan broke eye contact with himself in the glass and glanced at her. Her startled expression told him everything. "I'm sorry," he said a little laboredly. I just can't stand this." Her feelings of concern turned back to feelings of sympathy, her default for so much of their relationship, and she began running the washcloth tenderly over his skin again. Story breaks and picks up. The guy on reception gave the couple a strange look when they re-emerged into the lobby of that 4th Street Super 8. They'd only checked in a matter of hours ago, and now they were checking back out, and him with bloodstains all down the front of his white flannel shirt. Laura made no reference to Ethan's condition as she signed them out. What could she say? "Sometimes my boyfriend's dreams are so intense he bites his own lips until they bleed?" No. Better just to let the receptionist imagine whatever sordid motel blood play sex game he thought they'd engaged in and be done with it. When they finally got back on the road, Ethan agreed that Laura should drive. I don't think I can do it myself, he'd said. I'd need you. As they made their way back to Wynn Street, Laura thought about that, about how much Ethan needed her. She'd have been with him forever if she could, but how could you be there for someone in his nightmares? How far did you get? She asked after a short silence. What do you mean? Ethan replied. In the nightmare. How far did you get? He shook his head. I don't remember. It's a form of self-deception, Laura, she heard Dr. Brader's voice. By this time, Ethan is very skilled in self-deception. He can repress any memory he wants. You do remember, Laura insisted. Then she glanced at him in the rear view. Ethan, please, tell me. She could see tears starting in Ethan's boyish eyes, and his red, crusty lips were shuddering. I remember the smell, he said. The bone set and that sick lemony smell. Ah! Do you guys still see me? Is everything still running okay? 'Cause something went weird. What's happening? Why did that window jump out at me? Are you guys good? Somebody say something and I'll keep reading, but something went weird just then. What the heck? Is everything gonna go weird today? Okay, so you can hear me, and I think I'm still streaming okay. Whatever. Yeah, just one of the windows just popped up, like a closed window. Well, not closed, but you know, like you put it down. It's not open on my desktop. And it just was like, ta-da! And it was like, we can't reload this. And I'm like, I didn't fucking ask. What? Oh no, there's ghosts in the computer's blood. It needs to do cocaine about it. Sorry. Okay, we're gonna go back to this. He said, I remember the smell. The bone set and that sick lemony smell. I remember the light on the water and the wood ducks screaming. He stopped. Also, you can tell I like this story better because I'm not interrupting it as much. Okay. Go on, Laura prompted. He stared ahead. But not Windows. Not Windows. This is Mac. Google Chrome betrayed me. Okay. He stared ahead. They were passing St. James, making their way onto Route 167 that ghosted the Red River straight into Marksville. I'm digging away a stone from the entranceway. Ethan was entranced, almost back in the dream. After a while, it just slides away in my hands. I can see the inside through the hole that's left, and I can smell the smell. Like brick dust and cobwebs. Like unwashed skin. He looked at her self-consciously. I don't want to go on, he said. Ethan. Please, Laura. He looked at his lap. Self-deception, Laura thought. All self-deception. Or it's your brain protecting yourself, knowing that it's a lot to deal with. But okay. She glanced at him one more time, then fixed her eyes on the road ahead. She kept driving. Story breaks. It picks up. They passed through Effie around noon and then crossed the river for the last time. The high sun flashed like bashed gold across a long and flooded stretch of grass, and as they alighted from the road bridge, Laura pulled into park in a small lay-by that ran alongside an extinct vegetable farm. We're here, she said, and then she let the silence hang in the air. Ethan's eyes were closed and his face was tucked into his chest. Inside the darkness behind his eyelids, Laura knew he was seeing it all afresh. Himself at 11, squirming in through the hole he'd wheedled out of the ancient masonry. How he got soot and ground-wet soil on his after-school clothes as he pushed inside and crawled out from under the wall onto a spiral staircase that led to an attic room, high above the tomato farm, a space that no other human soul had seen in nearly 300 years. Maybe it had been a lighthouse once, calling ships inexorably down the black rivers of the 17th century Louisiana, and later, and just as inexorably, calling Ethan's boyhood body upward into that claustrophobic loft. She took his hand. You don't need to open your eyes until you want to, Ethan, she whispered. But I'm looking at it now. And then it's like she's interrupted. She couldn't see it well, just a straight and largely unremarkable gray shape among the green flood banks. Nothing you wouldn't drive by 100 times without noticing. She almost laughed. Was this really the center of all his suffering? It's just a tower, Ethan, she smiled. Then she looked at him. He was trembling, slowly and softly nibbling at his upper lip. It's okay, she said, leaning in, holding his neck, kissing his ear. It's okay. I'm scared, he stammered. I know, she said, but it never happened, Ethan. What you always say happened, what you dream happening, it never happened like that. Oh, great! Gaslighting him, that's perfect. Ethan never spoke, and so Laura kept speaking. You went inside, you found the staircase that led to the top of the tower, and you climbed. You're such a curious little boy, that's all you did wrong. She kissed his closed eyes. But there was someone living up there, in the loft. Police said that must have been why the stone slid away so easy. He'd removed it before you. He'd gotten up there and was living up there. There was no monster, Ethan. Oh no. There's gonna be a real monster, isn't there? Even in the heat, Ethan was shivering with cold. There was, Laura. You didn't see him. That's all deception, Ethan. Remember what Dr. Brader said. It's deception. You couldn't handle what he really did. You didn't even know what had happened, not really, and so your brain made up the story about a monster living in the tower. She kissed him again. Ethan, baby, I'm sorry. You went into that tower, and he attacked you. If you're guessing where this went, good job. Yeah, this is interesting. I don't think we'll probably refer to it a bunch after this, because I'm guessing we're about to hear how it really was a monster. It, honest to God, was a monster, and it wasn't a little boy creating a fictitious to avoid what he couldn't wrap his brain around, which is what Laura is about to say, but that it was really a monster. But it's still, I'm going to give you the trigger warning. You could probably guess where it's going. I'm not going to say the actual word when we get to it, but sexual assault trigger warning. That's what we're referencing. I don't think we'll get details, of course, because he doesn't remember them, and I think we're about to have the monster. But yeah, she said, Ethan, baby, I'm sorry. You went into that tower, into the loft, and he attacked you. He R-worded you, Ethan. Ethan's teeth strained on his fleshy, bruised lips. Laura held his face, forcing him to relax. Open your eyes. Come on, Ethan. Open your eyes and look at it. She turned his face, and almost out of reflex, he opened his eyes. The tower was the first thing he saw, gray and straight and sharp as a stab wound in the clean blue sky. Somewhere off in the river, a wood duck was screaming out its screeching sound. Story breaks, and it picks up. They sat in the car for a few hours after that, saying very little. Ethan was staring downhill to the farm and the riverbank and the tower he'd avoided since he'd been a kid. Laura was sitting in silence and letting him think. In the end, it was Ethan who spoke first. I dreamed about the tower before that night, he said. Remember I told you the folk round here thought it was a lighthouse? Laura nodded. I used to imagine that. Ethan was smiling. The old barquees? The ones the French traveled in. Old barks? I don't know. The King Louis's time. Pushing full sail upriver, and that tower, shining. There'd be nothing in the sky, see? Not back then. No lights in the skyline. Just that one, shining, calling them in. And I dreamed sometimes I saw the tower, and the top was burning, and there was a sound coming, like chanting, and I knew I had to go. She touched his shoulder. You never told me about that. I never told anyone. He looked at her sincerely. You're the first one. She smiled, and he smiled. Then he looked back, almost energetically, towards the tower. I want to go down. His tone was so assertive, Laura was hard-pressed to believe it was her boyfriend speaking. Ethan had never said an assertive sentence to her in all the years they'd dated. She'd always been the strong one. Why? She asked. He was already opening the car door. I want to see it closer, he said, pulling himself out into the open air and leaving Laura no choice but to follow after him. The story breaks, and up. The sky around the tower was bruising purple, and though the night was stifling warm, the growing dark seemed cold enough for Laura to pull her coat shut over her chest. "We should go," she called to him. "Wasn't this the whole point? What do you mean you should go?" He'd just come into view again, having circled the tower for the 100th time, his hand never leaving its warm stones as he orbited the structure like a moon around a dead planet. He was smiling the whole time. He ran into the field and grabbed Laura playfully by the wrists. "Aw, baby, just 20 more minutes, please." He smiled at her, then kissed her hard with his bloody lips. She tried not to seem like she was pushing him away. "Okay," she said, taking back her hands. 20 minutes. Then we've got to start heading back. We can come again tomorrow if you need to." Ethan laughed. "Aw, baby, I never need to come again. Damn, I feel so goddamn free." His eyes sparkled and he looked up at the top room above their heads, the place where, 20 years before, a lurking pedophile had held his slim body against the chalky stones, forcing his stained fingers into his throat, forcing himself on the boy. Maybe this isn't just monsters. I'm getting nervous. We might need to have a more specific trigger soon up on the screen. So if you think that you are not going to be up for the more specific stuff, I am totally understanding. Please look after yourself and leave. I'm nervous. Okay. Ethan howled with laughter and swayed on his heels, looking upward like a ritual inebriate, paying wild homage to the divine stars. "Ethan," Laura tried to touch him, to calm him. Ethan swung out of her reach, then his delighted eyes caught on hers. "Life's gonna be so much better now, Laura." He smiled. "Hey, baby, go up to the car, please. Find my mobile. It should be in the dash." Why? Laura was getting more puzzled by the moment. I would say this is the erratic change in behavior as like a, if this is straight, no supernatural, this is extremely alarming. Like, you should not be allowing him to stick around. You should insist that we have to leave. Something is wrong with how happy you are. If you're alone here, like, I would want someone else prepared to restrain him, possibly. I don't know what's about to happen. "I want to call Dr. Brader," he said excitedly. "It's outside office hours," Laura objected. Ethan shook off her complaint. "He told me this weekend to call any time. He knows how big a deal this is for me. Please, baby, just get the phone." "Okay," Laura looked at him sternly, "but after you've called, we need to get right back in the car and head for Alexandria." Ethan raised 3 fingers on his right hand. "Scout's honor," he promised. Story broke, and it picks up. She found Ethan's cell exactly where he'd said. It was in the dash with the sat-nav they never used. She retrieved it and pulled herself out of the car, looking down the now dark decline towards the tomato fields with their dancing bone set and one overbearing building. Okay, sorry. I'm getting very nervous. She couldn't see Ethan down there anymore and guessed he was doing another crazed circuit of his now strangely beloved tower. I don't think so. She didn't mind. It was for the best that he was out of sight. She wanted to call Dr. Brader herself before she passed him the phone, to discuss his strange reaction to seeing the place that had caused him such indescribable torment. She stole another look. There was still no Ethan, and so she fired up his phone, found contacts, and started scrolling through, only stopping when she came to Doc Brader. She clicked down and placed the receiver to her ear. There was only a ring or two before the call was picked up. I am nervous that that's what this is about to be. The sudden joy very much feels like that, and I'm very nervous, and I will go ahead and say that that might be a relevant trigger warning. I mean, certainly if it's intentional to make you worry about it, it's fair to put up that trigger warning. If any of you need to leave, please do. Or wait until the tower, mute and scroll or whatever until the tower is no longer on my screen. Because once that's gone, we will not talk about it. Okay. The call is picked up. Mike Brader, the doctor answered. Doctor, Laura said, I'm sorry for calling so late. Sorry, who's speaking? Brader asked. It's Laura McCarthy, Dr. Brader, she replied. I'm calling about Ethan Dwight. I'm sorry for the hour. Why do I feel like this isn't a real doctor? Okay. Ah, Laura, yes. Brader was smiling his side. Anyway, that's fine. I'd asked Ethan to give me a call. Technically, he's no longer my patient, but I'm in favor of post-care. Can I speak with him? What do you mean he's no longer your patient? Why is he no longer a patient? Sure, doctor, she said. We're there now at the place. Only what, Laura? Only, doctor, his reaction to seeing the place. I wouldn't read too much into that. Brader was still smiling. What? Laura asked. Into his reaction, Laura. His visible reaction, at least. Laura frowned. But why? Just think, Laura, Brader said. Ethan came to Bangor when he was 16 years old. On his first 3 job applications, he claimed to have been brought up at 124 Cedar Street. According to his friends, he went to middle school at James F. Doty, and he high schooled at the John the Baptist Memorial. But not one person knew him from those days. He even learned, albeit subconsciously, to speak with a Bangor accent. Laura, his entire life has been an exercise in avoidance and self-deceit. What makes you think he's being honest about his feelings now? That's exactly why you should be concerned. Laura couldn't believe what she was hearing. Brader had never shown nerve like this when he was getting a paycheck. He was practically calling Ethan a liar. That's exactly what he was saying before, and I wouldn't say calling him a liar. That's not what it is either. Like, we had already said that earlier. I wouldn't get mad at the doctor now. The doctor already said that. Ethan has problems admitting the truth to himself, doctor, she insisted. He's never purposefully lied to me. Brader was making a sound over the line. Laura frowned and listened harder. Was he laughing? Oh, Laura, he said, in order to lie to ourselves, we've got to lie to one another. Yeah. Laura pulled the phone away from her ear like something venomous and killed the call in disgust. It took her a few full moments to come around from the short conversation. Okay, they're definitely going to try and make us scared. I don't think we should get... I've scrolled ahead. Don't believe it for now. It's building tension intentionally. But it's not really happening. Okay. Well, none of it's really happening, but either way. Okay. So it took it a few moments before to come around from the short conversation. Why did you hang up? You're supposed to take it to him, and why? Like, you should have just grabbed the phone and gone, but whatever. It's a form of self-deception, Laura. He's deceiving himself. He's deceiving you. Yes, which we had already kind of addressed earlier in the story, so why is she shocked at this now? She tucked the phone into her coat pocket and stared again down the ravine rise. Still, after all this time, Ethan was nowhere to be seen. Story break, and it's up. When she got back to the tower, Laura was horrified at what she saw. Ethan, what have you done? She fell down on her knees in soot and soil by a collection of 4 large stones that had been yanked out from one of the walled-up entranceways, leaving a hole there just big enough for an average-sized man to wriggle through. Ethan's childhood Swiss Army knife was lying open by the extricated blocks, and Laura's skin crawled at the thought that he must have carried it in his pocket all the way from Alex. She pulled herself to her feet and threw her hands palms down on the now cooling stone. Ethan, baby, where are you? You're scaring me. She listened to the soft hiss behind the rocks. Nothing. Ethan! She listened again, this time for longer. At last, after long seconds, she began to make out the sound of a man lightly laughing in the cavity beyond. She pressed her face to the tower. Ethan? She whispered. It's okay, baby, he whispered back. I'm in here. But why? Her voice shook. I wanted a closer look, Laura. There was something so strange about his voice. I wanted to be in here again, where I first met him. Ethan, please. Laura was crying onto the indifferent walls. I'm scared. Aw, Ethan whined. Don't be scared, beautiful. I'm happy, and I'm about to get happier. What do you mean? Ethan laughed behind the wall. I'm going up there, Laura. I'm going up the loft. No, Ethan, please, come out. Come out. I can't now, beautiful. He was smiling in there. It's like a light. It's drawing me in. Her throat began to spasm with the fear, and she found she couldn't find voice enough to protest, even when she heard his feet turning on the dusty ground inside as they began determinedly to climb the spiral stairs to the room above. I don't think we really need the story to break here, but it does. The space was just large enough to admit her, and Laura remembered thinking how determined Ethan must have been to have squirmed through that tight crevice into the space beyond, the multiple horrific contortions he must have performed with his body. She clawed at the earthen ground on the side of the tower, tugging the last of her length through the gap in the wall and surfacing on the other side. She stood. She was filthy from head to foot, her skin ticklish with cobwebs, and she could smell much better from here, the almost sweet aroma that Ethan had described to her 100 times, the dirty, rotten flesh smell of his nightmares. She looked up the spiral staircase and screamed. Okay, just check that. Ethan! Then she noticed it, cutting down from above. The only reason the entire upward passageway wasn't lost in abysmal darkness. From somewhere above, a light was shining. A torch, Laura thought. If he brought his knife, maybe he brought a torch too, and she didn't see that on him while they were running around? Do you mean a flashlight? Okay. So he could see in the dark. Her skin crawled again. He's been planning this. She looked up again. Ethan! 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 There was no answer from above, and so Laura steeled herself and started the long climb upwards. And then it breaks and begins again. I do think we are turning into spooky, but this is still going to be weird before we do. It was about halfway to the top when Laura realized it wasn't just light drifting down from the higher quarters of the tower. Sound, too, rang discordantly over the acoustically jarring rocks. I dreamed sometimes I saw the tower and the top was burning and there was a sound coming, like chanting. Chanting. And that's in this sort of thing. I think it's supposed to be her remembering or thinking that. Remembering him saying that. As Laura reached the final steps, she realized that's exactly what it was. A man's voice, not Ethan's, but a man's, reciting some mantra in a language other than English. So someone's here. And I have no idea what it is. I'm a little nervous what they're implying with it, but it is looking like Malek bin Shadim Abra Rish. And it repeats, so that it says that 3 times. Her eyes were so wide they hurt, trying to pull in as much light as possible as she stepped terrified onto the highest room. Ethan was there, and her heart leaped with relief to see him. He was kneeling in the center of the room. Ethan! She moved towards him, but she stopped dead, watching the man she loved. Like watching a nightmare as he moved liquidly to his feet and turned to face her. His bloody, bitten lips were moving in constant obeisance. And then it says that same thing again. Malek bin Shadim Abrarish twice. Ethan, what are you doing? He stopped chanting. Wait, so he was saying it? He stopped chanting and cocked his head. In the painfully lit room, his eyes were almost black. Nothing important, honey, he said. Her stomach lurched. In that moment she realized what had been so strange about his voice. He was speaking in his old Louisiana drawl. Okay, so he said, nothing important, honey. The one he dropped when he was 16. Why are you speaking like that? She was heartbroken and terrified all at the same time. Heartbroken that he's using an accent that was his natural accent? What? Don't tell me that. Okay. Why, honey, Ethan smiled. I always talk like this when you ain't around. Laura made a break for the stairs, but Ethan moved twice as quickly and caught her hard against around the waist. Get off me, you idiot! She started, putting all her strength into striking him around the face and head. Get off! Woo, honey, he laughed. That there's the energy we need. That there's the energy he took from me all those years ago. You maniac! She landed a good hit. Ethan's nose cracked at the bridge. A flow of hot blood streamed out of his nostrils, streaking down his already tarnished shirt. He turned unfazed to face Laura, licking the blood and mucus off his face with his long tongue. Okay. This is getting uncomfy. All the triggers up. All the triggers. Brace yourselves. I don't know what this is about to be. I haven't read ahead, but we are going to mention that previous stuff again. Ooh, and I am going to be skipping that word. Oh, goodness. Okay. There is no him, you lunatic. She couldn't hold back anymore. Some guy R-worded you up here. Can't you get that through your thick skull? Some pervert put his dick in you. Get it? Other R-word, meaning disabled slur? She's awful. She was trying to bait him, to humiliate some sense into him. Ethan laughed, pushing the last of the blood into his mouth with his soiled fingers. Ugh. Is that what you think, honey? He smiled. That's what I know. Laura clenched her teeth. Then why didn't the police find this mystery man? And they even said Po-Lease. I like it. Ethan asked. He moved town, Laura reasoned. He got away. And why did I dream of this place? Why did it draw me in like a moth to a flame? Maybe you are insane, Laura cried. Maybe, Ethan grinned in the shifting shadows. But if that's so, tell me this, honey. What the hell is that lightning in this place? What the hell is it that's lighting in this place? Lighting in... Oh my gosh, I can't humiliate some sense into him. Jesus fucking Christ. Yeah, I don't like this. I don't like this choices. You were writing very well, but then you hit us with a slur, and I don't like it. What the hell is it that's light in this place? Laura's throat seized up, her saliva dried out, and her heart became erratic. Only now? Oh my gosh. They were standing in a 300-year-old room, and Laura couldn't answer why it was illuminated as though by electric. And she didn't know either why the light and shadow had never stayed still for a moment since she arrived. She assumed it was fire, I guess. Laura, honey, Ethan whispered, don't turn around. Her eyes wouldn't blink, her neck wouldn't turn. The shadow in front of her, her own shadow, told her that the source of the light was behind her. Ethan started chanting again, the same thing twice, the thing from before. Laura felt the thing behind her burning her backbone like a wreath of fire, and in there, among all that rustle of protean light, there was a sound, too. The low and keening sound of an insect readying to be fed. The end. So not very much detail on that little bit. Did he never tell her what she thought? I was hoping that there would be something like the story that he had told himself, the story he told police, the story he told the doctor. You know, what his young brain supposedly made up. We weren't going to talk about that? We weren't going to think about that? No? Anyway. Yeah. So, interesting. Very much interesting. I don't like the slur, of course. I don't love the one idea. I mean, it makes sense. You know, if you really believe this and you got scared and all this stuff is happening, maybe it's likely a therapist would hear what you're saying and come to the conclusion that they did. But as a writer, it feels a little bit like, oh, you rely on the most dramatic version of a obvious trauma to be what powers things is interesting. So I don't love that. The writing was good up until the slur. Like, even the leaning on our wording, otherwise, you know, the verb our wording. It felt like you were being truthful to this guy being very traumatized. So it didn't feel awful. But it still is, huh? But the other R word. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. Do people have comments that say that? No, I don't see. Oh. Show me the comment. It said that there is one comment, but I can't see it. Why can't I see it? Weird. Well, anyway. That was the tower. Wild. Okay. Okay. Alright, we're gonna jump into trigger redeems now and move straight on past this one. We're gonna do Herbert right up front. There we go. Bring on to Herbert. There we go. That's Herbert. Herbertin. Now I do sniffs and then I'll do rage puffs. And if you've got other redeems, this is the time. Okay. Lots of the sniffy sniffs. Now we're gonna do rage puffing. I'm angry. I'm just gonna drink first. What is that? I can't. That is just. No, that is just. I know. I cannot. No, no, just not me. I know. That is just. No, I. That is just. That is no. I. No. I would not. And there was Rage Puff. I think a bit louder than normal. Raven's losing it. Okay. Mike Springs. All right. This one hasn't been happening for a while, but I'm gonna mute. There you go. Then move the mic and go for it. Hold on. Oh, okay. Ugh, always try those. They're never a good idea. Oh. That one rattly. Oh goodness. Okay, we're done. Hold on. Okay, and okay, okay. The mic is being bad. The mic is not being nice, and I am nervous about that. It's done this a couple times now, and I don't know why, and I think it's something about my cord. I'm stressed. I am stressed about it. This is not cool. I don't like this. Okay, it made another pop. Wow, alright. That's evil. Please stop trying to hurt my viewers. Stop breaking their earballs. I don't like it. Sorry, everybody. I don't know what to do about that. I think no panic. I think no panic. But I'm not totally sure, Tom. It's being fucking weird. This has been a chaotic night for Raven. And there are still things that she is worried about. She is not needing another thing. Do you hear that, Mike? Do you understand? Okay. I don't know if it's gonna cooperate. I really don't. Let's hope it does. But with that, oh goodness. I wonder if this time things will work. Yep. Okay. I can deal if it means we get more time with our deer. Yeah. But I don't want it to do it at all. It's very mean. You're supposed to be nice. You're supposed to be nice, pretty fancy, Mike. We got you after the old one started doing popping and cracking at us. So I'm just saying that was, oh, sorry. That was the push. I'm not trying to threaten you, but I am warning you that, you know, if you're unreliable, buddy. This is me talking to my mic, not you guys. But okay. I click random story. We see what we get now. I go back to the other story. It still hasn't accepted my 1-star review. I'm losing my mind slowly. It seriously is refusing it. It's weird. Ugh, okay. Where's this little guy? Oh, those wibbly little eyes. Poor Dr. Kitty. Oh no. Okay. Well. Ooh. I think for one of very, very few times, we have a female main character. This has not been happening very often with creepypastas, which is another sign of the bad stories. People always doing male. Don't love that. But this one is called Together Forever. And I am hopeful that this will go well. The last one was written pretty well but had a slur, so, you know, negative points for that. Let's hope this one is good. It's very weird that it's still not. I actually just gave the last one a random star, like I just clicked quickly. Because I did like it, but then the slur, and I was like, that should not get good votes. I should probably give it bad votes, but I don't know what to do about it. And I wanted to keep moving. And I wanted to test that I could do votes, and it did it. And not only did it take my vote, it took it very quickly. There was no big delay at all. So, yeah, it's freaking weird. I'm going to try to save that tab and try it when I don't have VTube Studio and OBS running, and then I can't blame it on my internet being too slow because, like, it's just my computer being slow. It's not really my internet. It's just, like, there's too much for this poor little Mac to pull off everything very quickly. But I just proved that this site does take my vote fairly well. And, yeah, if there's not other stuff running and it still has problems, then it's very clearly a conspiracy. I'm just gonna say it. I wouldn't have normally believed it, but it's being excessive. Hi, Yar. We're about to start a new story, so let me just get that up. But yeah, Together Forever is the new title. Oh, you can't stay? Aw. But no worries. Go look after yourself, get stuff done, and then enjoy your work tomorrow. Alright. Together Forever. Yeah. Did I miss Channel 5? What? Oh, you mean like an SCP? No, I haven't done that one yet. Let me click. Really don't. Yeah, no, I haven't done that yet. And, ooh, that means I might not do it. Yeah, I don't think I'll do it before Spooktober's done. The ones that we've done of yours, Andy. were that whole set that was the aquatic horror to Not a Planet set. So those ones that you dropped more recently, Humper Monkey to Battery Ditto, they have not happened yet. Oh, except for Devil Child's Lack of Empathy. Oh, the red, that, yeah, no, okay. I see now. Yeah, we'll see about some of that. I'll update you. Okay, but I gotta focus. Let's put that away. Oh. Okay, so Together Forever. Let's read this. And I might have to bop out. I don't know. I don't like to. Okay. Last week, I was alone in my bed. I'm not alone tonight. He's right next to me. He's not supposed to be here, though. Last week, I was a senior in high school and completely in love with Stephen Hooverson. Truth be told, I've been in love with Stephen for years. He was always handsome and popular. I've never been popular. I was an only child, and my mom spent the majority of her time bouncing from one man's bed to another. Usually in... Oh, goodness, okay. I suppose... drug use. Warning. My goodness. Trigger warning for drug use. Usually in a meth-fueled haze. I was often alone for days in our dilapidated trailer. We didn't even have pets. We couldn't afford them. Besides, there were always strays running around the trailer park. A few times I would drag in some mange-riddled puppy or scrawny kitten, and when my mother finally noticed, she would yell about having another mouth to feed, before tossing the animal out the door. As I got older, I would hide the puppy or kitten for a few days, before my mom could find them. I would smother them under a pillow. Oh... I'm sorry I didn't have an alarm before that. I was hoping that this was a nice person. Remember when we read the story about the sociopath? We're going down that road. I get a feeling Steven's dead, and that's who's next to her. Just saying. Okay, trigger warning. Scary, scary. I'm gonna say violence on many things. Okay. Alright. I would, and I'm sorry to say this, I'm just gonna say these ones. I would smother them under a pillow or drown them in the bathtub. I buried their little bodies under the trailer. That way I could visit the small mounds of dirt if I was feeling particularly lonely. I was alone at school, too, of course. You wouldn't think someone could be lonely surrounded by a classroom full of people your own age, but you'd be wrong. I want to sympathize because lonely in a crowd is so real, but, I think they are avoiding you for very reasonable reasons. Anyway, children have a special way of making someone like me miserable. If you're trying to say that it's about because you're poor, you're incorrect. My clothes were usually dirty or tattered, my hair hanging in greasy strands around my face. It's hard to keep up appearances with donated clothes you couldn't even keep clean because the water was often shut off. My classmates would tease me, call me smelly and that grubby girl, and avoid me. Their whispers and giggles trailed after me, as close and familiar as my own shadow. See, you want to empathize with that, but you killed animals, so no. High school kids can be especially cruel. Boys would pretend to flirt with me on a dare. If I ever gave the slightest hint I believed their compliments, they would burst into laughter, running back to their group of friends, waiting a few feet away, all of them pointing and doubled over, laughing. I hated the stupid sound of their hyena yapping. I learned to keep to myself and avoid talking to anyone. Most of the time, everyone acted like I was invisible. The only good thing about being invisible was being able to watch Stephen. When he passed by me in the hallways, I could smell his body wash. My eyes would trail after him, drinking in every detail of the way he moved, how his clothes hugged his muscular body, his brilliant smile. Just being near him felt like standing warm sunshine after weeks of cold. Do you mean in warm sunshine? But anyway, in class I would watch him rub the back of his head when a test question was frustrating. My fingers would twitch on my desk, aching to run my fingers through his hair. Last week I was tired of being alone. The 27 dirt mounds under the trailer were not enough. I wanted to be with a person. I wanted Steven. And the way that is phrased definitely implies mound. So not hanging out with Steven. Not living anyway. I don't like this. I don't like equating someone that's bullied and poor and struggling to just a murderer. Okay. Last week I was tired of being alone. I wanted Steven. It was the week before Valentine's Day. I watched stupid girls giggling as they passed pink cards out to their idiot friends. That isn't stupid. It's showing platonic love. Cute. Anyway. I watched boyfriends surprise their girlfriends with the standard boring boxes of candy. Even the damn teachers would find gifts on their desks. Yeah, 'cause they work very hard and need to be shown appreciation too. And it's a holiday, even if you think it's a stupid one. It's a sweet thing to do. Fuck you. Thank you for the support, Andy. On Thursday, February 12th, so that there's a Friday the 13th. Yeah. I will say, I have always liked that. When it's the Friday the 13th, pretending to be Valentine's Day. I think it's a funny thing. I think it's cute. Anyway, I decided I wouldn't be alone on Valentine's Day, 'cause schools celebrate the Valentine's Day on the Friday. Workplaces might celebrate the Valentine's Day on the Friday if you're not doing things on Saturday. Anyway, okay, focus. I decided I wouldn't be alone on Valentine's Day. I skipped school and took a bus downtown. Well, Valentine's Day was Saturday. If Thursday is the 12th, Valentine's Day is Saturday. You wouldn't have to skip school. Do you mean on the Friday the 13th day? Or do you mean on the 12th, on the Thursday? Why are you skipping school on the Thursday before? I don't know, but okay. Anyway, at some point, I skipped school and took a bus downtown. I remembered the area from a time when my mother would drag me with her to score drugs. That's scare drugs. Woo, scare, boo. Okay. There was a woman in a rundown apartment building that would read palms or whip up hexes and potions. I had some money stashed away from my after-school job flipping hamburgers. The woman's name was Tamara, or Miss Tam Tam. She always gave me the creeps. She gave you the creeps. I wonder how it went the other direction. I remembered the night she grabbed me by the shoulders and stared into my eyes. I was in the 3rd grade. I'm mildly worried that this author doesn't realize that the killing animals thing is deeply alarming. I'm mildly worried that this author is like, yeah, things that people do. Empathize with me. And then everyone has got to tell this poor person, no, that's not okay. The other stuff, that's just tough living, and yeah, empathize. That part, no. I'm honestly nervous because we keep just skipping over that bit. Oh no. I'm not sure, but okay. Anyways, I remember the night she grabbed me by the shoulders and stared into my eyes. I was in the 3rd grade. My mom had brought me to the building to meet up with a dealer. Mom had hissed at me to keep quiet and not to touch anything. As we climbed the dingy stairs, we passed Miss Tam Tam. Her skirts were billowing out behind her with each descending step. My hand involuntarily reached up to caress the colorful silk. Before I knew it, steel talons sank into my shoulders and whirled me around. Sharp, almost black eyes pierced my face. What you know about me, child? Oh no. Oh no. This is supposed to be an accent that's highly racialized. I'm not doing it. Okay, child. Her voice purred like a cat, but there was an undercurrent of hatred and malice. Yeah, I think it's just the malice because you touched her when she said no. I stammered, my mouth gaping as the air in my throat leaked out, forming no words, only soft grunts. Never mind this idiot girl, Miss Tam-Tam. We're just meeting up with Eddie, my mother laughed, her voice small and shaking. Mother pulled me away from Miss Tam-Tam. Yeah, it's not that you're an idiot that's really the problem, I don't think, but okay. I see you again, child, Miss Tam-Tam laughed. You need something, and I'll give it. I'm not doing this, but you won't like it. Yep, I'm not doing this accent. Again, she cackled, and with a flourish of silks, she continued down the stairs, her humorless chuckles echoing off the peeling walls. I watched her disappear behind a door spray painted with a neon green skull. Years later, Miss Tam-Tam's warning repeated in my head as I stepped off the bus in front of the crumbling apartment building. I waved my hands around my ears as if I could brush the memory of her words away like a troublesome moth. Yeah, this character is not well. A man was sitting on the building steps, sipping dark brown liquid from a bottle wrapped in a crinkled paper bag. I stepped past him, holding my breath to block out the musky smell of his body odor, and pulled open the door to the first floor hallway. Why did we need to know that detail? Why did we need to roast someone for no good reason? But okay. A fluorescent light pulsed overhead with a buzzing hum. The flickering light bathed the cracked gray walls in cool light and only served to deepen the shadows in the corner. Though it was mid-morning, the hallway seemed dark and sepulchral. I walked up the staircase to the third floor, where I found the same glowing green skull, faded but still menacing, on a battered door. I raised my hand to knock, but before my knuckles could land on the wood, the door slowly creaked open. There was a swampy smell, mingled with the metallic scent of blood. Miss Tam-Tam's smooth voice slithered from darkness beyond the door. Here you are again, child. Look how you've grown. Come in. I stepped in, and the door closed behind me with a soft click. My eyes adjusted to the dark, and I could see that the apartment was a studio. Really just one large room with a small bath. What the heck? Have I had this out this whole time? Thank you, Natsu. Cage, you... No one said anything. No one said anything. You little shits. Wait, someone did? OMG, the tongue. Oh my gosh, I didn't see it. I didn't see it. I just said nice looking onward to that one, and then, yup, looks exactly that way. I didn't see the one between. You guys don't tell me things because you just think it's funny. I look like an idiot. Yes, Mlam. Mlam. I look stupid. Dang it. Okay. Anyway, back to story. I thought you knew. Cage, have you not learned? No. Why would I have it on purpose for a spooky story? I don't do this. Why do you assume these things? Why? What would be the purpose? I should have kept my mouth shut. I guess if you really like it, you should have. But what the fuck, guys? Oh my gosh. This is... Okay. I'll tell you what, Natsu. Do a roll. Do a roll to convince me to keep my little tongue out. Go ahead. You haven't rolled yet, and you're the one that says you should have done that. So go ahead and hit me with a roll. Let's see. I'm waiting. And then we'll pick up with a story. I'll wait until then. Of course he did. Yeah, you failed. I'm sorry. That's too low. I win. No tongue. There we go. Oh no, I should know. Oh gosh, that implies. Okay, I'm just gonna read the story. Okay, and the frickin' point. Here you are again. That bit. I stepped in, and the door closed behind me with a soft click. It. I do it whenever it's relevant, and then apparently accidental a lot. But yeah, you rolled bad. But okay. Anyways, I'm gonna keep freaking reading. I stepped in and the door closed behind me with a soft click. My eyes adjusted to the dark and I could see that the apartment was a studio. Really just one large room. Yeah, you can't roll again. There's very solid cooldowns. Really just one large room with a small bathroom tucked away in the corner. What could have been the living room held a small round table with 2 chairs. On the table was a deck of cards and a long twisting knife. All along the walls of the apartment were shelves full of jars, strange plants, a few tattered books, and what looked like small bones. The makeshift kitchen was situated on the other side of the room. A large steel pot bubbled on a hot plate set up on a broken dresser. Miss Tam Tam stood next to the pot, stirring slowly, her back to me. I slid my backpack off my shoulders and pulled out all the money I had, $100. I gripped the wad of cash in my fist and cleared my throat. I need a potion, I said. Do you do that? Miss Tam Tam turned to look at me, nodding twice. I don't know how, but she looked even taller than when I first saw her when I was a kid. She stepped towards me, and I couldn't help but shrink back against the door. Yes, I do. Her voice was clipped, and her black eyes bored into mine. Riz. Not so great. She stopped only a foot away. I thought I could hear the sound of a swarm of bees from somewhere in the room. The soft buzzing pulsed in time with my heartbeat. A love potion? I asked. Ooh, that's good love, though. Nearly perfect. Heck yeah. Miss Tam Tam threw her head to the side and spat violently onto the stained carpet. Her face twisted with scorn, and she shot forward, closing the distance between us. Only inches away. Her lips curled into a sneer, revealing mottled yellow teeth. Love. The word spewed out of her mouth. Slimy droplets of spit flicked onto my face. Stupid child, you sure? You think that's what you need? Oh, no, Natsu, it does not. It proves love, I'm glad, but no. Okay, I straightened, willing myself not to blink, and raised the money to my chest. I'm not going to be alone anymore. Miss Tam Tam grunted and took the money from my hand. I exhaled slowly, and closed my eyes in an effort to slow down my heart thumping wildly in my chest as she turned towards the kitchen area. I could hear pots banging and Miss Tam Tam muttering to herself. You can't roll again, I told you. It's very harsh cooldown. You have to give up. I'm sorry, Natsu. My eyes flew open at once as a terrifying idea flooded my brain. What if the potion accidentally made Steven fall in love with someone else? I didn't know how all that worked. I'd certainly seen a movie or two where that mishap occurred. He must want only me, I insisted. I stepped over to stand near Miss Tam Tam, trying to ignore the acrid smell now rising with the steam over the boiling pot. Of course, child, Miss Tam Tam purred, but it takes something of you to do that. She stepped to me and tilted her head forward, sniffing. The action reminded me of a wolf tracking prey in the snow. I froze in place while she bent lower, weaving her head back and forth across my torso. You have in your moon cycle. I smell it fresh on you. She looked up. Her eyes gleamed as they scanned my stunned face. That blood be the best. Please. No. Oh my gosh. As I'm yawning but still floored. She abruptly stood and whirled over to a shelf above the hot plate and returned with a small coffee mug. Take this in there and put your plug in it. She pointed to the cramped bathroom across the living room. I nodded and took the cup. My body shook as I sat on the toilet with one hand clutching the mug between my legs. I pulled the tampon string, catching the blood-soaked cotton cylinder in the mug with a wet plunking sound. I set the mug on the back of the toilet, avoiding looking inside, and inserted a fresh tampon. Washing my hands in the stained sink, it feels like the only reason that this is a female lead is for this piece of bullshit. Oh, I hate this so much. Oh gosh, this is awful. Washing my hands in the stained sink, I studied my reflection in the mirror. I looked crazy. My eyes were bulging, wet globes straining from pale skin. 2 roaches twitched as they perched on the faucet. Even the roaches have someone, I laughed, but it didn't sound like my laugh. It sounded a lot like Miss Tamtam's horrible, empty, cold laugh. Yeah, I have no empathy for you right now. I don't care. My God. I returned to the kitchen in time to see Miss Tamtam sprinkling a white powder into the pot. She took the mug from my hands with a monstrous grin. The 13th is a powerful day for this spell, she said. I realized it was Friday the 13th. I knew it! Okay, we did skip school on Friday. That's not what I expected to hear. I literally have to cover my niece's ears. I mean, it's gonna be a part of her life eventually. If she's listening to our stories with all the other stuff I've said, you should be covering those ears all the time. If she's understanding this, my buddy. But also, this is not the one. The earlier parts of this are worth covering ears. This one is just messed the hell up. Ugh. But I feel like it was a stretch to get this done. And that's the only reason this is a female main character. Like, it just feels weird. But okay. And yes, it was Friday the 13th. Now, perfect. More of that terrible, empty laughter wriggled in my throat, and I clamped my mouth shut. Oh, are you scared you're a villain? Honey, you've been killing animals. You've always been a villain. Miss Tamtam turned and tossed the bloody contents of the mug into the boiling pot. A hiss of steam, pink in color, escaped the bubbling liquid. My stomach lurched, and I wrapped my arms protectively around my body. Miss Tamtam whispered in a language I'd never heard before. She stirred the liquid in what looked like very specific rotations. She ladled the thick-looking, dark red potion into a small silver flask and turned to me. Just remember, child, he will be with you forever, no matter what, she intoned, her face a statue. She already knows? Yeah, well, there you go. There you go. Forever, I whispered, and carefully tucked the flask back into my backpack. Before she could say another word, I ran from the apartment. You're not gonna try and get any more info? Like, do you pour this over something of his? Does he drink it? What kind of is the, how does it work? You're not gonna get that info? Because that's kind of important. But anyway, I ran from the apartment. Her horrible laughter followed me down the stairs and into the entry hallway. Outside, the sunlight was blinding, and I gulped at the fresh air. On the bus ride home, I began to form a plan. Stephen would be at Jennifer Mill's party. I had overheard several of the kids at school talking about Jennifer's kick-ass Friday the 13th party. Jennifer lived in a big fancy house a few blocks from the school. All the popular kids would be there, and probably a few burnouts too. I figured I could sneak in relatively unnoticed. I was invisible after all. No, I think that's the one spot where you'd be very obvious. I'd pour the potion into Stephen's drink the first chance I could. Well, good luck with that. Stop trying not to. It's a bad idea. I think that warrants you will never get it. Okay. I'd pour the potion into Stephen's drink the first chance I could, then I'd wait. My heart pounded as I imagined having him all to myself. I imagined him holding me, my cheeks ignited. I imagined Not being alone. My mom wasn't home, as usual. When I arrived back at the trailer, I took a long shower. I tried to wash away any lingering smell that might have contaminated me in that awful apartment. Based on how you apparently don't clean yourself up very often, I would not be concerned about that apartment smell. Also, as far as we're aware, your mom doesn't seem to notice that kind of thing, but I don't know. After my shower, I shifted through my mom's closet and pulled out a mini dress. It was black and probably the least revealing outfit she owned. I pulled the stretchy fabric over my body. The dress was a bit loose and hung around my thin frame, but it would do. I took time to brush and braid my hair, and even swiped a little mascara onto my eyelashes. It was a special night, after all. It was a 2-mile walk to the school, and just a couple blocks more to Jennifer's house. I tied my sneakers, no dress shoes for me. The single pair of sneakers was all I had, and I knew I couldn't make the walk wearing my mom's ridiculous slut heels. We don't particularly need to just... it just feels excessive, insulting, but that's what they've done. I stuffed the potion into my jacket pocket and headed down the street. The cold winter wind whipped around my bare legs. Along the walk, I imagined Stephen asking me to the prom. I imagined Stephen proposing. I imagined being with Stephen forever. My pace was slow as I dreamed of never being alone again. You blocked yourself. What are you doing? Stop. Pace was slow as I dreamed of never being alone again. The sun had already begun to set when I left the trailer, and it was getting dark fast. I was almost halfway to the school when thunder rumbled throughout the sky. A light mist of freezing rain fell on me, and I pulled my thin jacket around me as tightly as possible, thankful to feel the comforting weight of the flask in my pocket. Flask or vial? Because flasks suggest you brought your own booze, because the thing was in a vial, but okay. Where was it? A car splashed past me and jerked to a halt before reversing. I knew that car. Oh no. It was a completely refurbished 1976 Dodge Charger, cherry red and sexy as hell. It was Stephen's car. I had overheard him talking about it several times. He restored it with his dad. It was one of my favorite late-night fantasies to imagine Stephen's body pressed against mine in the back seat of that car. Ooh. I blinked in the increasing rainfall as the driver window lowered to reveal Stephen's beautiful face, smiling with concern. You need a ride? He asked. I could already smell him, and warmth flowed through my body. If you can smell him from that far away, he's got way too much Axe body spray on. Okay. I couldn't believe my luck. Yes, please, I stuttered and hurried to the passenger door. The lock clicked and I scrambled in out of the rain. I couldn't help but grin like an idiot at him while I clicked my seatbelt. I noticed he wasn't wearing his. Such a naughty boy, so sexy. I shivered and whispered a thank you. This is a man riding a woman in all the icky ways, except a murderous woman. But I don't like this. It's my guess that it is, but I don't know. Okay, anyway. No problem, he said and began driving. Where to? I don't think he is. I think he saw her suddenly in what she would describe as a slutty dress because it's her mom's. And that's not normal. And she did bathe herself, which, based on how she described herself typically at school, maybe she didn't do that very often. And so, you know, also in the rain, he saw, oh, since when are you? I mean, he's a teenage boy and there's a mini skirt on this female body. He's probably gonna respond. I think he's just trying to get lucky and disregard whoever this is because it's probably just a object to him. I mean, it's possible. It's very likely. Or he could be very, very nice. She is probably gonna murder him. Okay. No problem, he said, and he began driving. Where to? Oh, I was going to Jennifer's party, I answered. I heard it was going to be cool. To my horror, he started laughing. My stomach sank as he chuckled like someone would if a small child told a knock-knock joke. I don't think that's a good idea, he said after a minute. He eased his foot off the accelerator and I could feel the car slowing. He had half a smile on his lips, a pitying smile. He pitied me. My blood started to boil. Listen, you know the kids there are just going to make fun of you. You won't have any fun around them. They can be kind of mean, he explained, still wearing that stupid nice guy smile. His hands turned the steering wheel, pointing the car in the other direction. He was taking me back home. Back to that empty trailer with only my dead pets for company. Back to being alone. I wouldn't call them your dead pets like that. The rain was pouring, and flashes of lightning illuminated the empty sidewalks and manicured lawns, leading to cozy houses full of happy little perfect families, just like Steven's family. He reached out to pat my shoulder, and my vision flooded with red. I didn't need his fucking pity. He was supposed to love me, damn it. My hand moved on its own, shooting out to grab the back of his head and slamming his shocked face against the driver's side window with all my strength. His body tensed in surprise, and his legs straightened, jamming hard on the pedal. The engine growled, and the car rocketed forward, wheels spinning on the rain-slicked streets. I could hear myself screaming with rage just before the car crashed into a massive oak tree. There was a wet, crunching sound when his face hit the steering wheel. No airbags in his precious Charger. Everything seemed to be in slow motion. I could see the top of the steering wheel disappear above his nose. His eyes popped like, little grapes before the steering wheel pushed all the weight into his head. Blood exploded onto the dashboard and splashed across the windshield. So she didn't really kill him, but she killed him. The seatbelt tightened around my body, squeezing the air from my chest. My head snapped back and hit the seat with a thump. Dark butterflies blotted my vision. I heard the same horrible buzzing sound from Miss Tam-Tam's apartment. Like 1,000 bees were inside my head. I started to sink into the dark. If you're gonna say that he stays with you, he hasn't taken the thing yet. Oh, I don't know. Okay. Lightning flashed milliseconds before a booming crack of thunder erupted in the sky. I jumped